Hello and welcome to what has been a very long layoff for some of our podcast listeners, but also our podcast panel. It is not another podcast brought to you by the Esports Social Club for episode, what feels like it's been coming forever, 24. I'm James Jimmy S. Cowan. Joining me are the regular duo of Ian Sniper Turner and Geordie Mac McAleer. Gentlemen, we have been MIA.
Oh, I've been MIA in every sense of the word. I've even cheated on us.
Yeah, we sent you equipment over to WA, which you're currently, I'd say, camped out.
Don't get me doxed, but yeah, I'm in the vicinity.
It's a big state. Now, we sent you equipment specially to get an episode of this recorded, and I think within the first 24 hours of it having arrived, you'd already appeared on, I wouldn't say a rival podcast because we're not rivals by any means, but another podcast.
A pure Counter-Strike podcast.
I just thought, you and Mac had done it. It was only fair. But it arrived within 24 hours of arranging that, yeah. So that was very handy. And now it's getting used for its intended purpose, which is fantastic. It's good to be back, boys.
Technically, we sinned first. We were on other podcasts first.
Yeah, but, a little hiatus,
Well, I think our last podcast was May 6th. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mac.
Oh, dude, I don't know. I can't remember. It's been a long time. It's been all of COVID, essentially. We did was it 1 or 2 online casts? I think it was only the 1.
Only
when I was
you
at
were
home.
online.
Yeah, well, still partially online.
Yeah, we
just
did
because
2.
we were being appropriate and not mingling.
Yes, we were making sure that we were following COVID-safe guidelines and keeping ourselves socially distanced, even on the couch. Even though we live in the same house, we still observe the 1.5 meter rule with our 3-seater couch. In fact, Ian sat on the opposite end of a long couch, and it would have been about 3 meters, I reckon.
We were doing it before it was cool.
Yeah. We were definitely doing it well before, let's just say, some of the other states. But in terms of what we've missed, gentlemen, I mean, I feel like we're Rip Van Winkle in some senses. We've taken a little nap and we've woken up 100 years later in the esports landscape, and there's probably a million different local stories that we've missed, but we're probably going to try and in this podcast focus on some that have happened in terms of significant events, but also in terms of some events that have happened recently. So, I mean, there's a whole host of things that have happened in our absence, but I mean, let's just talk about the first one, the one that's the hardest hitting of all the questions. What have we been doing? Like, generally, what's our excuse for not being online? I'm gonna start with you, Ian.
Look, I've obviously shipped ashore, so I'm out. Sorry, I'm out west, just dealing with some stuff at the moment. But I'll be back in Sydney ASAP, and obviously being locked in Fortress WA, the Premier.
Worst fortress is to be locked in.
It doesn't want me to go back to New South Wales, which is a real shame because I really enjoyed New South Wales. So much to do in Sydney. And now you see it. Yeah, they're overreacting a little bit with the whole COVID situation with Adelaide now, or South Australia, having it sort of cluster. But that's where I've been, and I've been stuck here without any gaming or any PC or anything. So it's been a good couple of months of just sitting on my hands. But otherwise, work-wise, I've been kept my corporate shield happening, and I've been getting places and getting ahead. So that's been really, I've been putting all my energy into that basically. And which, I mean, you saw even when before COVID really kicked off, we were transitioning to work from home, and I was living on the bloody thing. So that's all I've really had to do over here.
If anything, it's probably delayed our announcement. Like you and I, our personal announcement, like everybody else seemed to be doing at the time, announcing themselves as a Valorant duo, having never played the game.
Mate, look, I don't think I'm going to do that. I don't think you could, I don't think $150 a day is enough for me.
No? Okay, well,
Also, the
$150 a day.
the game does not appeal to me at all.
You don't like the game?
No.
Is it just because there's not enough maps, or you just don't like it?
I don't know a whole lot about it, but from what I've seen, it just does not appeal to me. It looks like a kid's game. It looks like Fortnite Counter-Strike. Search and destroy Fortnite is how I look at it. But then again, I never got into the building part of Fortnite as well. So everyone else is like, there's no building in this game. So I hear what you're saying, guys, but I don't give a fuck. It just looks like they took the pistol rounds from Counter-Strike and went, how can we do this? And throw in some other, spells instead of utility. So I've seen it before and it doesn't appeal to me.
All right, now,
Fair enough.
Mac, you've been probably more front-facing than the two of us have been in some time. You've been on a few broadcasts lately.
I've been on a lot of broadcasts. Yeah. So, I'm more of a full-time esports commentator than I am a cinematographer anymore. Like, I've only got 2, maybe 3, maybe even 4 jobs with the camera work this year. But then I've at least managed to pay rent, and then some off the back of all the pretty big broadcasts we've ended up doing. Although a lot of the Asian and the Oceanic stuff, because it is the IEM Beijing's, the IEM, or the EPLs, essentially all the teams that are invited just continually the same teams. So it's getting really stale without having the lands, without being able to see other stuff. So it was really good when we managed to get we got to do Cologne, the B stream for Cologne for the initial group stage. And then we got to do all of the B stream for EPL as well, which was I think it was 2 games a night. I think it was only 2 games a night, but it was 1 EU game and 1 NA game. So we got to see EU CS and NACS, and a lot of the EU games we got were supposed to be the not as higher quality sort of games, because the A stream would usually take their pick of the bunch. But we got a lot of upsets and we got a lot of really good games. So it was really good to see a lot of EU stuff. Even just the fact you watch EU CS, even at the lower the lower end, even though they're still playing in Cologne, so they're very, very great teams. At the lower end, you're not getting your complexities and stuff. There was just so much more structure, the quality, the sharpness of the players, just the overall mechanics. It was just so much nicer to watch, and you forget that exists when all you're doing is just this Oceanic Asian scene over and over and over and over. And then I ended up staying up and watching a lot of the IM New York, doing the fan cams and stuff, which was more of a brand building exercise, which people seem to love. And it was fun to do as well. Yeah, I've bloody got
I saw you on
followers
there.
off it.
I saw you on there the first one, and someone was like, "Oh, is that Mac we just saw?" And then the next one, they're like, "Let's get Mac in."
Yeah,
and you're like, "Yeah, the boys." And
had MC saying, "Oh yeah, the producers asked if you're going to be around tonight," and I'm like, "Yeah, I can be around." And it was good because coming off the back of Pro League as well, my sleeping pattern was cooked, so it was upside down, so I'd be able to stay, up to 7 a.m. jumping around, watching the sunrise and watching CS at the same time, just being an absolute nonky. But it was fun. It's good. And if that's what the people want, then that's what the people want. So whatever, it's fun. It's, I was bred a fan. I was bred in Twitch chat, and that's exactly where I returned. And I came in as king and tried to stay there,
By the Twitch chat, for the Twitch chat.
That's the one.
That's it. That's the hill you choose to die on. But apparently what the people want isn't always the best. Okay.
Okay.
The community may not always get it right.
What are you trying to say? Democracy isn't good?
It's a benevolent dictatorship sometimes. Now, I'm referring to another matter. That's very cryptic of me. That probably would have been better served as a tweet, to be honest.
We could have done that later in the show anyway.
Yeah, true.
I don't even know which one you're talking about. We've got a list. We've got a big list.
All right. Well, let's talk about some of the significant things that have happened in our absence. This one's probably the 2 that I'm going to choose are a little close to home in the sense that they're significant events. First one, we're going to stick to what we are born and bred in. That's Counter-Strike, and 100 Thieves exiting CS, and the team, the boys, and the 100 Thieves ex-roster now, having been split up. Obviously, we saw JKS go to Complexity, We saw the rest of the team still window shopping themselves out to other organisations, and there's been a lot of talk, but not a lot of action on that front. So, I mean, are you really surprised to see JKS move into a new roster, obviously with the intention of winning trophies and taking championships?
Yeah, I feel like I didn't get to watch more than the first map because when I've been trying to flip my sleeping pattern because, I just want to be more on a normal time schedule. So it's really hard to watch all the EU stuff when you're on a normal time scale. That's it. Like it's ridiculous. And now I've got a dog as well. This thing's waking me up at like 6 a.m. every day just to like go drain the main vein. And
practice for having a kid, isn't it?
Well, Jess has never really wanted kids. I kind of did, and now after this, I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I'm a bit of a not a dad, not for a while at least, not until we're more set up. It feels like there's a level of responsibility. Anyway, that's
addressing the real
tangent.
issues here today.
Addressing the real issues.
Family matters.
Haven't seen a whole lot of new complexity, but I'm very excited to see what they can do. However, their first performance, like straight out of the gates, was a bit lackluster, but they're only pracking for 2 weeks? Maybe
Seems
3?
to be a real issue with these new teams. It's not like in Australia where you could make a new team overnight and take out number one because no one knows what you're doing. But the new teams in all, like even with, we saw it with OG, they've taken a really long time to come to fruition, but I think now that they're here, they seem really good. I mean, obviously Flashpoint might not be the best benchmarker, but Cloud9 as well coming up brand new. So there's a lot of brand new teams in NA and Europe. So, and that Cloud9 obviously being, I think they're in the EU leagues. So it is tough for them. I think coming up as a brand new team, it's going to take a couple months to get your shit together, really.
And then the fact is too that they're playing a lot of these events online as well, which we know is not always the measuring stick for a team's worth.
Well, depends on the team, right? Depends how Danish they are. It used to be depends how Polish. Yeah, it depended how Polish they were. Then it went to how German they were, and now I think everyone's just like. I mean, we've said it all along. I think, or the main commentators have said it all along. Online means shit. Like you wouldn't want to be gambling on online games. That's for sure. I remember that's how I used to get burnt back in the day when I was having a flutter on the big leagues.
That wasn't while you were playing, was it?
Yes, it was while I was playing, but which is not the right way to go. So one thing for sure though is looking at this complexity roster, I still think like what have they got? They've still got Rush. They've got a lot of money. And I was looking at Rush and I was thinking, is he still going to bring the goods? Config, obviously, he's been burnt out for a while. See if he can get back to his old form. And then
he's had some big performances.
I look at the recent results and I'm like, okay, well, look, they've smashed Fnatic and they beat Na'Vi in the Beijing Europe qualifiers. But, I mean, and they had a good game against Vitality back in Blast. But, I mean, I'm not too sure. Again, like we were saying, they're just online results. And I think these big names just aren't playing that good, really. They're not playing that good. Na'Vi, Fnatic, they're not like they used to be where you'd look at them and go, they're a contender to be number one in the world. But I am totally ecstatic for JKS anyway to get that opportunity and take it. Because I think he's been holding himself back a long time on the boys train and obviously trying to have that patriotic nationalism. I think it's really not been in his best interest. So I like now that he's actually out there and might get an opportunity to build a dynasty, but he's really also, I wouldn't say JKS is in the form of his life anymore.
I think too, it's sort of like, I think you explained it to me in a sense of like immunity and how it like the immune system works, not as in the team. But if you go through like periods of intense stress, obviously in terms of his playing career, he was in a position where he was having to do a lot of heavy lifting for the team. Obviously then going through a period of uncertainty, maybe with 100 Thieves as like an organisation, particularly then with the roster, the future of that, his career as a player, a lot of uncertainty there. And now he's through that And like once the stress period is over, the body has been fighting for so long that it actually gets sick after all the stress and all that. So maybe now that's the flow-on effect to his Counter-Strike, is the fact that he's seemingly through the woods, but now when it's actually some time for him to perform and really cement his position on that roster, he's suffering a little bit of burnout from some previous
maybe
headaches.
This is the first Australian on a really tier 1 European roster anyway. I wouldn't call it a tier 2 roster. It is a tier 1. So he's also got a big learning curve. And that's crazy to think that a guy in the top 20 players in the world has a learning curve. But you can't just slide into the DMs of a EU team and play EU Counter-Strike after playing AU CS for a very long time.
Or NA.
Or NA arguably was worse, right? And from what we heard about the Renegades prac situation or the 100 Thieves prac situation, it's like you can't verse someone and do your strats. And so everyone just thinks you're just pugging. But super happy for JKS. Better late than never, I suppose. And obviously there'd be a tidy check there. Yeah, but as for the rest of the 100 Thieves, whoa, Jesus. It feels bad, man.
They've got that Dallas Cowboy money.
All right.
But I mean, in terms of obviously the organisation stepping away from CS, there's been wild rumours floating around as well, whether or not those players would find their way back to Australia. Which team? There was even wild rumours of them as joining Avant because he was seen
that one
playing with them at some absurdly late hour
or something. Yeah,
it's like, use your brain for starters. He's playing with them because the team isn't pracking. There is no team. He's bored. There's nothing to do. He's got friends over here. And any player in their right mind that would not play on an Australian roster right now and come back to Australia if you're already overseas. You've flown the coop, essentially. Why would you take a step backward? You would explore all your options in North America, in Europe. Hell, I'd even go South America before I came back to Australia.
Yeah, I'd go to China before I came back to Australia.
Do what every great, soccer or football player has done, and go take that money to play in some, overseas league that is considered to be for burnt outs and retirees before you come back to Australia, and then cash your A-League check.
Then come back to Australia and sub for FaZe in IEM.
We only found out the other day that Kaze on Vici apparently doesn't speak good Mandarin. So he apparently has some rough comms sometimes, even still. And he's been in that lineup for like God knows how long now. So it's just interesting to see, there's a chance that if you could somehow find a Chinese roster that would be willing to speak, like broken English, then you could still play the game. And if you have like a really good lineup of teams, then it could be really good. But that's also dependent on if you want to go, play internationally, go live in China. It's like same issue with, like Hysterics, right? Like he had to go live in China and he's still over there as far as I'm aware, doing all the LC. Is that LCS? No, that's
LPL.
LPL, that one's LPL, yeah. Mate, there's too many bloody OPL bloody leagues, mate.
Too many acronyms.
They're all over the place. Too many acronyms.
But speaking of acronyms, and one of those acronyms, the OPL, no more. Pretty significant event in terms of Oceania. I mean, you probably looked at OPL as one of the most, regular fixtures in Oceanic Esports. It's the case study, right? It's like here's the league that is run by the developer. It's pushed by it's a closed system. Yeah, it's surefire. It's the best thing that you could possibly put in front of a potential investor into esports and new money into esports, and it's gone ass up because basically Riot have decided that this region can no longer support the OPL commercially, but then you have to turn inward and look at some of the decisions that they've made and go, well, they've fallen on their own sword here. It wasn't a case of the the region being unsustainable. It was a case of some pretty poor decisions along the way, and I think it's going to have some pretty significant ramifications for people trying to put esports in front of new investors, new money for quite some time, because that really was the exemplar of what could happen if the developer came in and actually showed some significant support to the region.
I think it was one of the biggest domino effects we've seen in Australia. I can't think of anything else that's been such a devastating blow to esports for the entire region, not just Australia, I guess. Well, yeah, mostly for Australia. But there were these organizations that were built around that support from Riot and from League of Legends. And since then, you've just seen the majority of them just crumble, and not many of them have been able to pivot into something new. And especially doing it in an unprecedented time like this, it's just unreal. And the livelihoods that have been impacted, again, just unreal. Like, we're talking about not just the Riot staff in Sydney that were sacked on the day, but all those players, all those coaches, all those player managers, all those teams, all those sponsors, just up in smoke seemingly overnight. So that was with a heavy heart that I saw that news, and I just thought of everyone else involved. And as you've seen, Legacy, they're over in OPL while over in the whatever it's called while it gets announced, over at Worlds, and they've won games and they've taken down South American teams and whatever, and not viable, not commercially viable, guys.
It's like, how about the trickle effect of like the lack of an announcement as well? Just all over Twitter, everyone from the league scene just tweeting, like subtweeting over and over, and it's like, yeah, something's going down here. And then it got announced later on that night or the next day or something, and it was just like, wow.
So do you want to know how that trickled?
How? Do you know?
I do. Okay. And effectively, the ownership group of all the teams were given about an hour and a half's notice before the announcement. So they were brought in and given that news, and in that time they had to send that information to their players, their staff, and everyone involved before the announcement came out. An hour and a half at best, by the way. There was teams that obviously weren't contacted within that time, but that's ridiculous. Like, to have the rug pulled from underneath you that quickly, and not only that, it wasn't just the competition's done. It's like, no, the entire ecosystem has crumbled. It's like if you're from the Legacy team that's overseas, it's like, oh, by the way, guys, you're here representing this region. Your planet no longer exists. Like, the Death Star that is Riot has just come in.
It's like the terminal.
And shot it, yeah. But, I mean, obviously, it's not a joking matter per se for all the staff and teams that have essentially just had their livelihoods incinerated. So it's a pretty significant event. And obviously, off the back of that, a lot of discussion has been, well, now what now for League in this region? Riot turned around and said, oh, we'll consider this region now to be sort of a feeder region to other regions. We're going to allow concessions for players from this region if they're on your roster to no longer take up an import player slot. They're actually considered to be a native to that region. They had import player slots on a lot of their rosters, particularly their academy rosters. You're only allowed a certain amount of them. OCE players no longer take up an import player position. That is basically Riot turning around and saying, well, that, and this is ad lib, Thorin, you know that pile of dog shit that you've been just fed? No, it's actually Swiss chocolate. It's actually great. You will enjoy it. Like, we're looking after you. We're doing the best to support you. But yeah,
I mean, not
OPL,
taking up a foreigner spot is really good.
Yeah,
But
yeah, no, it's great.
The rest is way outweighs it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in terms of events, like from a business perspective, like people, sponsors looking that have been sitting on the sidelines maybe for a long time, and everybody knows that who's been involved in bigger commercial deals, they take time, and they, I dare say there's a fair amount of deals that fell through on the back of that because they're in the process of doing due diligence and working out all the fine print. And one of the big ecosystems in esports in Australia has pulled up stumps in the middle of a pandemic, and that doesn't really ensure consumer confidence by any means.
And look, then they get the follow-up prize of being told, hey, you guys can all pick up a Valorant team and play in the First Strike competition. So now you've got Gravitas, bloody Legacy in that, all entering a new scene blindly, having to pick up teams that may or may not be great teams. And then you also got the talent as well. So we talk about everyone that was affected. Like, fortunately, we did see that, Spawn announced that he's gone to, was it Liquid as the academy coach, right? So at least he's found something. But then you got like the other three, or I guess the other two mainstay talent. Nick Boy's obviously got many other opportunities, many other revenue avenues and stuff. So he's got that at least going for him. Yeah.
In terms of obviously, that sort of announcement off the back of that, I mean, we all saw a multitude of announcements of who's going to step into that hole left by OPL, who's going to try and fly the flag for League of Legends. I mean, as far as some of the announcements I've seen, one of them was actually dead serious, that they were going to take over the Oceanic League of Legends scene. However, didn't actually consult the publisher. So
what was that?
They announced the Oceanic League of Legends tournament. It literally had the most generic name, and essentially they've gone and said, yep, we're going to announce the prize pool. We're going to do all these cool things, but we don't actually have publisher approval. It's pending publisher approval, but we've announced it anyway.
Yeah, right.
So for anyone that is out there who is trying to announce competitions or trying to get things off the ground, the first step is actually getting publisher approval to do so. Because more and more what we're starting to see is
game dependent.
A lot of publishers, though, are very very mindful of where their IP is being utilized, particularly their esports products, and you can't just use them for whatever you like. Now, Counter-Strike, we know, is the exception there. Valve really don't care what you do for that particular game. If it's Dota 2, you can't touch it unless they're involved. But for Counter-Strike, awesome. You do whatever you want. We don't care. We don't even want to know about it. But we had a visitor on the podcast.
Yeah, it was just Jess asking if the podcast was still going, to which I nodded. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyway, continue.
But essentially, in terms of that one's for our YouTube viewers only, by the way. In terms of getting publisher approval, the amount of people and I guess the increasing activity in the space in esports, we're going to see a lot of these things start to pop up where they're not actually going to be sanctioned or approved by the publishers. So we're entering a space where the implications are that a lot of these tournaments aren't going to be able to even get off the ground.
Yeah.
Illegal esports, the underground scene. It's the next big thing.
It is. Now, that's probably the two bigger, more significant events that we'll touch on. I mean, that are in recent history anyway, in terms of while we've been absent. We haven't been absent-minded, though. I think that's probably the thing to note is that, we haven't actually made a podcast, but we've been weighing in on bits and pieces here and there on Twitter. We've been very mindful of the fact that
we've been selfish, Jim. We've been selfish, and we've been having our own little discussions about these hot topics and not sharing it with the folks, and weighing in on our own little Discord server, just being like, "Oh, look at this! Oh, did you see that?" And it's been a pretty fascinating couple of months, really, hasn't it? Seeing everything get cancelled, no lands, been a bit of a landemic. It's not turned out how I pictured it anyway. I thought this was our chance to thrive. I think we did thrive for about a month or two, and then I think COVID maybe got to people and people just stopped having events except for ESL. And then you saw Flashpoint come up, and I think that's been a welcome change. I've struggled to watch a lot of the Counter-Strike, even though my time zone is in a better spot. But I've been watching the news. I've been watching a bit of Counter-Strike, more than I would if I was in Sydney. And just to get my head around how the game looks now, and looking at how everyone wants to be European, and yet the Brazilians are still just doing their thing. And the thing that I guess what's being forgotten here as well is JKS going to 100 Thieves. That was really cool. Everyone was really happy for JKS, and then everyone was hoping that Dexter would get called up. And even though it's unrealistic to expect that, because Aaron would still be IGL or whatever. And now we're just going to forget about the other 4 guys, the other 5 guys? Imagine being Gomez right now. Like, what's he going to do? He's the other guy that's lost a team, really.
Yeah.
I reached out to Gomez, and he said he's had, some people contact him. So he won't go home empty-handed, which is good. I was worried about him. Haven't spoken to any of the other guys, though. But I heard rumors as well that they were going to be picked up by Gen G, and then... That was just Gen G's now was. Oh, I heard it was like the Core 3, and I was just like, okay, well that makes sense for one reason. Then there was that that other new team which was being made that they were going to take the Core 3. I can't remember which one that was. Someone
still gets stiffed in that, right? If they take the Core 3, there's 4 of them, so someone's still getting left behind there. Although, Jake, I'm sorry, he's gone to that Norwegian team, which I thought was pretty crazy. It seemed like overnight he was just like, you know what, fuck the European scene, whatever, and I'm just going home to soil my oats. Yeah. But realistically, that's actually turned out really well for him, because he's got a team straight away, getting a salary straight away, getting some money. And it doesn't matter if you're playing online during COVID. So, he's lucked out. At first, I was like, fuck, I'm disappointed. He's gone to some tier 3 shitter team. But now I'm just like, this guy has made the best decision ever during the pandemic. Yep. And it'll be interesting to see if he changes once it's all done. He's got till 2022 to join a real team again.
I think the other thing is too...
Grat said he was going to potentially go and play Valorant as well. So I don't know if he's had any Valorant offers, but that'll be interesting to see, because at least in NA... the Valorant scene seems to be stealing a lot of the top potential CS players.
Mate, if you're interested in a new game, go play Crossfire. $900,000 first prize for some game that looks like us 3 could make a team and make it to the finals.
Are you keen? Because I'm looking for a game to play at the moment.
It's just unreal. It's so much money, and yet people are going to go to Valorant now. Obviously, the NA is its own little bubble. Well, Cloud9, Valorant, I can only imagine why they're getting paid. Where the money comes from, where people are getting their return, it doesn't make any sense to me. But obviously, milk it for all it's worth while you can as a player. You don't need to worry about the business side of things.
Milk it too, while you're an early adapter and the skill gap hasn't closed.
Exactly, yeah. And, we're going to, like I said, the Counter-Strike players are going to have a huge head start, especially the teams. So... it'll be interesting to see how that pans out, but go get your money while you can, I suppose. I won't hold the grudge, but I don't think you'd be able to come straight back to Counter-Strike into a tier 1 team, which is what they finally molded themselves into.
Yeah. I mean, the example for that, right, for me is think back to CGS days and the complexity lineup that went to Source. And then came back to they were a top tier.
NA was ruined. NA was ruined.
They were the best team in North America at that point in time. They went to Source. They played as LA Complexity. I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah. And they picked up one of the best Swedish CS 1.6 players as well. He went across to Source, Zet. And then eventually the Source scene died down after CGS died, and they came back to 1.6, and they were awful.
Yeah.
The mechanics totally different.
We're talking like the stars of the show as well.
Yeah.
We're talking like Shaguar. We're talking Fraud. We're talking like the big deals of NA Counter-Strike. And they just came back and shit the bed.
And they weren't able to, like, I think the only player that was able to semi-recapture some of his 1.6 form was actually Fraud. But the rest of them, they just couldn't wind back the clock. They couldn't rediscover their form. They weren't able then to break through into other teams in Counter-Strike. So, yeah, it was just a case of, once they'd gone on to what they thought were greener pastures with, CGS, or in this case, maybe Valorant, when they came back to their bread and butter had dried up. So, yeah, maybe that's something to consider for some of the players that think that maybe...
don't forget, they've got the major spot, right? They've still got their major spot with their RMR, don't they?
Yeah, as long as they keep core 3 or whatever it is. I'm pretty sure we were discussing that the other day.
And you're saying with the Gen G one, it would be, Ben Ted joining or something?
I have no idea. I can't remember. But the thing with where I was going with that one was like Gen G have now gone over to Europe, and they picked up, was it like Exist, and I can't remember who else they picked up. But they picked up a couple of like EU players that are sort of like LFT, and they just have them as stand-ins for whatever tournament. And then they, as far as I'm aware, they were just standing in for Europe. Where are we? Flashpoint.
I'm pretty sure Exist is just standing in. But
yeah, they 2-0 OG straight off the back. With like stand-ins.
He's always had a better run as a stand-in than a core member Exist.
Yeah. When he won IEM, stand-in.
Yeah, stand-in.
Yeah, so Kriaz and Exist both standing in. Kriaz played out of his mind. Kusto had a really good game on that one. And like they literally won train 16-5 and then won 16-10 on D2. And OG, they're in a bit of a rough patch, but even so, like they should be beating Gen G with stand-ins, like every day of the week.
Yeah, agreed.
So in summary with that one, I think it's safe to say that, if you are in the position where you may be able to make some quick coin off Valorant, do so, but don't abandon your roots, because if you're in a position where you're in a team and you're leaving a great team.
Dip your toe, but don't go for a swim.
Yeah.
Well, at least the thing is, overseas, they still have, like their Riot leagues over there together, over in NA, over in EU. So because that, they're going to potentially have some Valorant leagues down the track after all the First Strike and these other competitions. If they do want to, change their mind and go back to like the whole franchisee system that they have in place, like we don't have that in Oceania anymore. We don't have that. So we'll have to go through a different route to get these international qualifiers, and it's just going to be hell. So there's going to be no consistency over here. So at least for them, if they did stay overseas with it and go into Valorant, like it's a better place to be.
Well, you say there's no franchise systems over here, but which organizations were given automatic invites to First Strike? There were existing Riot organizations through OPL. So like your Legacies, your Mammoths, your Gravitas.
Is that not a wooden spoon prize though? For like, hey, look, sorry, we don't have any league anymore, but
it is. Don't get me wrong. That is like dog shit being sold as Swiss chocolate. But the point I'm making here is that they're already trying to encourage established organizations and inviting them to a global qualifier when they're already making moves to try and franchise this. Like if you want to get invited to this the First Strike qualifiers, you have to be with one of these organizations.
No, you can qual. Like there was already invited teams that aren't these organizations. So
correct.
These teams just got instant slots. So they had to find teams that were worthy enough to at least make it into the qualifiers.
That's how
and they didn't
franchising
get
starts.
Yeah. Okay.
Like
Anyway.
they're already making moves to try.
Who's to say that they are good
do that.
though? They're just in good orgs, right?
Correct. They've done enough to convince the org to sign them. Whether or not they can actually deliver on what they said they're able to, who knows? But that's between them and the org, to be honest. But the point I'm making is that Riot are already trying to eliminate open status on some of these competitions. Yeah, there's open qualifier elements to it, but they're already inviting pre-approved organizations to their competitions. So who knows how long that open ecosystem is going to remain. I mean, that's already the first move towards making things a little bit more closed and forcing some franchising. But we're going to move along, and we're going to get into a topic that is something that we can all weigh in on quite significantly. We saw a bit of talk about the day rates versus hourly pay discussion for commentators. So whether or not accepting an hourly rate for your wares, as I can already see Ian with his head in his hands, accepting an hourly rate for commentary versus day rates. Now this debate, it went on Twitter. There was quite a few big players there was some hot takes in there. Don't get me wrong. And it just seemed as though there was a bunch of confused newer commentators who were totally caught off guard by the fact that they were being, potentially wronged in some instances by taking what would seem to be very, very low day rates, but then also trying to justify maybe why they didn't feel as though that they should be valued so highly. And it would just end up being this this back and forth as to discussion between what a day rate is, what a day rate should be, whether or not we think the day rates around are up to scratch, obviously without divulging too much information. But where do you stand on I think we're going to be pretty unanimous with how we think on this one. Obviously, all having done and spent some significant time casting and doing various different bits and pieces. But I mean, Ian, I'm going to go to you first. Hourly rate versus day rate. It's a no-brainer, right?
It's a no-brainer. Yeah, it's not. I mean, an hourly rate, you just either way at both ends of the spectrum, you're just cucking yourself. If it's a quick day and there's 4 maps, well, you're out of there. It's a quick day. You only get 4 hours pay maximum. If it's a long day and you get 14 hours pay, well, think about all those times you got 4 hours pay. It doesn't add up. So the best thing to do is just have one solid rate that's saying this is how much your time costs for that day, but it's not just for that day. It's for your knowledge. It's for your experience. It's for everything that you bring. It's not for like going to work and at the fish and chip shop and getting paid $20 an hour just so you can do manual labor. That's all you're getting paid for, is that manual labor. You're not getting paid for anything else, your brand or anything like that. So, and your hourly rate just won't factor that in. So yes, your day rate, the day rate is really the only way to go. It's industry standard. Don't rock the boat. Like, you're just hurting yourself. You're hurting everyone else. And these other people shouldn't be doing it. But obviously, if I'm a TO and I can save $1, well, guess what I'm going to do?
Yeah, that's often where a lot of them look to try and carve out some more savings in the budget, is actually in the talent budget.
It's like this dark chasm of like no one knows how much we get paid. And I've tweeted out saying, look, just message me if you want to know how much we get paid and I'll tell you. So you don't have to go down to $150 a day. Like, that's ludicrous.
We did a bit of research recently, like reaching out to some of the bigger boys just to, I guess, figure out the differences between what we were getting, what they were getting and stuff. So that was interesting.
Did you realize how far behind we are?
We're relatively different in the amount of money we were getting paid.
I don't know if relative is this word. I don't think it means what you think it means. It's a different fucking ballpark, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even in League of Legends.
Look, I want to go with an example of even from like back when I was doing like event photography back in the day. You'd like give them your day rate, and they'd always like people who were I guess didn't have as much money to pay for it or weren't expecting it to be, you know, the figure that you sent, would be like, oh, do you have an hourly rate? They'd always come back and ask that if they kind of wanted it cheaper. So then you'd pretty much have to go, oh, like, you know, prefer to not have an hourly rate, because like all this happens, like this package involves like me probably being there for like 4 or 5 hours, then like editing all the videos, all the photos, which will maybe take like an hour or two, you know, back and forth with the client, them saying you want all these like however many bloody changes to the photos, etc., and like different size prints, and you just like send this list of like things that the day rating, the bloody day rate includes, and it's like this one time thing. And then if they're like, okay, cool, but like what would your day rate be if you, or like what would your hourly rate be if you did an hourly rate? And I'm like, well, it'd have to be like something like this, which would end up being the same as the day rate for the amount of time you knew you were working, because then you'd have to like add up all the extra hours you'd do editing.
No one sees that.
It was, yeah, they're just like,
so they're going to be like,
you did not
spend that much time editing.
Yeah. So it was a whole thing, and it just seems like, it feels like it's in bad taste, because it's mostly like if someone asks you what's your day rate or what's your bloody hourly, I keep fucking saying day rate because it's literally the only rate that we like to talk about mostly.
It should be the only one
it should
we
be
talk about.
And if people come and say, oh, what's your hourly rate, and they're in the industry and they know they shouldn't be asking that, and they're trying to like get you to work for cheaper, it feels like it's in bad taste if they do that. So, you know, that's why I'm not a big fan of it. I want to talk about, you know, I had a pretty hot take on that thread as well. I said,
I believe you
hourly
said
rates are dog shit or fucking stupid or something like that.
But
I was also very drunk at an engagement party.
We should call them Mac
very
takes,
good
not
friend.
hot takes.
So,
I love Mac's hot takes, by the way.
The Mac take.
They are just...
He was Mactating all over the place.
From the heart. Mactating.
Yeah, I was like, hourly rates are fucking stupid. You're an idiot if you work for an hourly rate or something like that. And then I think I offended like Rob. Rob was like, well, you're not an idiot. And I'm like, oh, dude, I was like literally saying like, I don't like in my speak, that's like, I think it's a bit silly if someone decides to work for an hourly rate, because without, you know, me also clarifying all the things I know about working for an hourly rate, etc. Every time someone in esports has tried to get me to work for an hourly rate, which isn't, which is like straight in esports, not in like the video side, it's always sort of been like, oh, okay, why? Like, why don't you just want to pay the day rate? Why can't we agree on, hey, just this rate for each day I work for you? You know, it's much easier that way. It's much simpler. Like, and if I end up having to be there for 12 hours, look, you don't have to pay me more. So it works out for you, you know, something like that.
Yeah. Like, yeah, you really can fuck us over with this day rate if you want to by running a shitty tournament. But we're going to be nice and cut you halfway. But if you do your hourly rate, it's like, you know, you're punching a clock. You're punching a clock. You don't want that. Trust me, you don't want that.
No.
I've done that. You don't want that.
Oh, yeah.
Someone
and then they try to get
say,
you. Yeah.
Yep. Someone will always say, like, I saw you sitting on the couch, or I saw you, you know, you left early that day. Like, if I go to rehearsal, you're ruining my whole day. But I know if I'm doing an hourly rate, you're going to charge me 2 hours and say, okay, cool, we did it.
That's why, you know, I like, say, for example, for a rehearsal is expected to only take up maybe half of what a broadcast would, right? Therefore, the standard would be
successful.
Half day rate. Yeah, if successful. I've been on some really...
We've had some shit rehearsals that just take...
The rehearsals sometimes were better than the broadcast, to be honest, but they were still shit. But
the standard is half your day rate for a rehearsal.
Correct. Yeah, correct. I think it's, you know, it's safe to say that, you know, if there are commentators out there who don't know how to price themselves, you are our worst enemy.
Yeah,
honestly, why are you our worst enemy? And your own.
You could be getting some real money.
You are turning down potentially a lot more money that you could possibly get. But not only that, you're hurting the commentators that rely on this income for, you know, for their means of life. Now, Mac, you said this year alone, you've got far more jobs as a commentator than you have through your traditional skill set, your qualifications as a cinematographer. And anyone that steps into this realm and is charging a budget price for their skill set is essentially undercutting you. They're undercutting themselves, and all they're serving to do is devalue anybody that steps into that space in the future. Because say they do another event, they're going to turn around and go, well, cool, we're doing the budgets for that next event. We're going to pull the same budget again.
I know a guy.
I know a guy.
Yeah.
But not only that, they're going to take that, okay, this guy can't do it, but we'll go to the next guy. No. Well, we know that we can get people for this or cheaper.
Yeah,
so,
this would be a good one. Avril has a good couple of stories he told me about some situations he's been in, specifically in esports, which he's found quite interesting. I won't speak for him though. I'm going to give you an example straight from back when I was like trying to break out and be like known, get some work, get some exposure, etc. During my camera work, we got offered by these guys we knew who not only had like an actual paid full, like really good video production company covering one of their festivals. He also got us to do specific work for a couple of like the music artists, which he was in charge of for the label. And I can't even remember. I think the way we knew it was the guy I was working for, me and him were good friends, and he went to school with this other guy who was like an electro producer who was at one of the festivals. What's the festival that's at
they're all dead now.
Randwick Racecourse? I can't remember.
We're not.
There's one of many.
I'm not
anyway
around here.
Yeah, right. Of course you're not. So wrong crowd to ask. Anyway, whatever that was, I can't get. Anyway, it might have been like Good Life or something. Anyway, it's one of those bigger festivals. Like Dead Mouse and shit were playing, so it was like a pretty prestigious one.
So people are making money from this event.
People are making a lot of money, and like these guys we were working alongside who were doing more of like the whole festival. He asked us, "Oh, what are you guys working? What are you guys like charging for this?" And we're like, "Oh no, we're just like doing it to get some experience because we haven't really done too much music festival like event shoots and stuff yet." And we're good friends with the guy who was the music producer. And he was like, "Oh, okay, you probably shouldn't do that." And we're like, "Oh, why not?" And he's like, "Because like they're making money. They're going to make money off you. They're getting like free exposure off you. You're working for free. You're like not getting much off of this. So, you should be charging at least something for, a little job like this." And then he was just like, "Look, when you do this sort of stuff, it actually hurts us, like, because they're going to find other people coming up who work for free who might eventually be taking our job, and then we won't get paid, and then our whole industry suffers," is essentially like what he said in like, more words. And I was like, "Well, what do you reckon we should charge?" And he pretty much there was like, if you work like for anything less than like $500 a day in an industry like this, like it's not even worth it. Like you're just going to hurt so many people. And these dudes were getting paid like $3,000 a day to do all this stuff. They're probably getting like a full, like package. They're like, "Hey, you pay us $10,000, we'll do the 2 days, full after movie, full packages for like whatever artist and stuff." Cause they had like a full, like 5-man crew or something just to cover the whole event.
This isn't like esports is not the only industry that this happens in. And like, this is the worst part, right? The commentators that do have some full-time work, for example, that this isn't their main jam. So like say, for example, Ian comes in and he's like, "Oh, I feel bad charging so much money despite the fact that you've got, the best credentials here in terms of like, CS analysis, for example." You just feel bad, Ian, because for you, this is a hobby. It's not really a full-time gig. You've just like laid waste to anyone who does this full-time.
Yeah.
So in terms of, I guess moving forward, I think it's safe to say that, this battle has raged on. It was 2 years ago that there was some very significant discussions and talks around like CS commentator rates, for example. The fact that Gfinity moved in. I'm going to use this as an example. because obviously very present in this one, that Gfinity moved in and they actually were paying a higher day rate than what the current going rate was for, say, for example, some work at ESL. And that actually was really healthy for commentators because ESL
Finally.
stepped up.
Finally had something. Yeah, for sure.
And
Finally had
raised their
something to
day
go
rate.
to.
Yeah. So ESL stepped up to the bar there and said, okay, well, we're going to have to do something here if we want to hold on to our talent. And they did. They stepped up. So raising the bar for day rates is actually really healthy for not only the commentary team, but also the commentators as well. If you're getting paid an awful rate, and when I say the commentary, I mean as in the overall product. If you're getting paid a rate that you feel you're worth and you're on a broadcast, you're going to bring your best. And that's going to flow on to the show. That's going to really shine through and overall create a better product for that tournament organizer or that broadcaster. They know now that their money is being put into the right place.
I still think broadcasters are not getting the right talent. I think they just get whatever they can that's cheaper instead of worrying too much about the end product. I've had this argument many times with TOs to say, look, the guides you're getting are obviously not asking for a lot of money. It's pretty obvious. You're scraping the bottom of the barrel when there's all this good talent around. There's so much shit that goes on behind the scenes when these TOs decide their talent lineups.
It gets political.
Like political and politics. It's like the last thing you need on top of all of that is this pay gap. So because, there are people out there who don't like us or myself or Mac, because we cast on ESL. They think we're ESL shills. So anyone who's not a fan of ESL, and there's plenty of people out there, won't go to us first to hire us. So if they're going to someone else and they're scraping the bottom of the barrel, that's your opportunity to get our rate. Like, I don't know if you know that, but that's your opportunity to get a decent rate. And that's not through anything that, you've done or anything like that. So that's your chance, and you're just screwing it over because next time they won't look at anyone that asks for a decent rate, and their product is not going to look as good, and then people won't watch it, and then maybe it won't last. Who would have thought? Who would have thought that this product with C grade commentators won't last?
No one's watching it because the broadcast doesn't add any value to what they're seeing.
Yeah, like if you can watch a CS cast with the sound off and say that that's just as good as having the sound on, then that's because they've got the wrong commentators and they're cheaping out. If they've got someone really good in there, you want to hear what they have to say. You want to hear like Max jokes and laughing and shit like that, because otherwise you're falling asleep watching a broadcast that's muted. So the people that are tier 1 in Australia in particular are there for a reason, and they should get the day rate that they deserve, and TOs should be looking to put on the best broadcast as possible, and they should be budgeting for that.
And I think, that's obviously, I think the main area of concern is probably, newer games like Valorant, for example, because I think Valorant has probably seen the widest array of different faces on the commentary desks that we've seen for different competitions. So that's probably where the real
any emerging game, really, any emerging game. There's these people who have a brand already from years of experience in other games. They're the ones that you should be looking to get, for sure. And those ones that are new to the game, I can understand why their rate would be lower. But, doing things for free or doing things for like $100 a day or doing an hourly rate, you're just not doing any good for anyone. Including yourself. There's no fast track to success. You're either good enough or you're not good enough. If you're not good enough, then keep working until you are good enough. And you'll know when you are good enough because someone will say it, and you'll get a job offer off your own back.
And you can go to a TO with your day rate and they don't even balk. Like they go, well, okay, if they're serious about getting you,
they'll move mountains.
Commentator, and they want you on their broadcast, the day rate that you put in front of them, it's not going to be a huge issue. They might not have the budget for it, but you'll get pretty close to it.
They'll tell you, oh, we don't have the budget for that.
But if they really want you, they'll come to the party. I think it's safe to say. And I've turned down a few jobs because they haven't been able to pay the day rate. I think we all have.
Yeah.
But eventually you don't get asked for those jobs anymore too. And in all honesty, it's not a loss. It's not a loss in that, your time is probably better spent elsewhere.
Do you know what feels really bad? Those early days for people like Conky and Rob, and what's really disenchanting for them is the gigs that they get are those gigs that are fucking shit and are like absolute nightmares. Like no one from production knows what they're doing, blah, blah, blah. That's your intro to the gig. Like that's your intro to the career path. And you're like, shit, do I really want to do this?
Yeah.
And it's not until you get out of that shit fight of shitty TOs, like I don't want to name names, but I watched some real shit on TV and stuff like that. And I just go, wow.
Fest.
Like your brand is suffering because you're dealing with these shit idiots. So I do feel really bad for those guys coming from zero and dealing with those bad TOs and trying to break through, because it's night and day when you get a real TO that has decent production and you know that's where you want to be, but you've really got to fight through that shit at first. So like we've all done it obviously, but I do feel for those people that are struggling. And I would say just keep in mind that, it's not going to happen overnight. Look at Conky now, like if he wasn't in Perth, he'd be in an ESL broadcast most nights. He's doing his stuff for that LPL. You've got Manic, who's moved over to Rainbow Six. So everyone who really stuck it out there has got their success. Mac obviously goes without saying.
Also, props to Rob. He's on the bloody major, the R6 Oceanic major, which got announced earlier today. So it's a big
that's
move.
good. I didn't actually see that, but it just makes sense. And I think Rob's going to end up being probably a big figurehead for Oz Rainbow Six. Not that he isn't already, but I think he'll go pretty far with that. But that's another example of a game that was emerging and there was obvious lack of talent, and they just needed someone. And as soon as Rob went over from Counter-Strike, already having that experience, it was kind of like night and day when he was on the desk. Dev Marta obviously carried Rainbow Six in Australia for so long. And I just think they're the opportunities people need to go for. When you see a Valorant broadcast and there'll be a couple of weak links, think, how can I do that better? And then start working at it. And then I guess, how do you prove that you're good enough to do that? Obviously, it comes down to your branding with Twitch and Twitter. And there's no other way, really. I mean, that's our industry standards. And then I guess the other question is a show reel, Jim, which I know you're really fond of.
Oh, mate. Like, you guys probably, Ian, I've got a show reel. Mac, you probably haven't been made aware that I've got a show reel, right?
You're going to show me the show reel?
I'm
going to be impressed
maybe
with
later.
the show reel?
If you got a gig for me, or if I'm interested.
It's kind of hoping a fan would make mine, but I've got to get one first.
Yeah, look, that rolls into that discussion, right? Like, what do you bring to the broadcast? How are you going to get your name out there? So you're the next commentator. Okay, you've just listened to us and you're like, okay, cool. I think I can bring it, and I think I'm worth that day rate that's maybe close to Ian Sniper Turner, who's been to 2 majors. But okay,
your microphone just got louder as you said that.
Really?
It was just
it's a noteworthy accomplishment. Not many people have done it. One man, one region, 2 majors,
no cups,
bad HLTV rating.
The importance of being able to get your best work in front of TOs is important, is super important. Now, I think maybe a handful of commentators actually have a show reel to try and court themselves some new business, some new broadcasts and things like that. Now, obviously, myself, I don't do a whole heap of broadcasts here and there. Like I have to reach out to TOs if I want to get myself on a broadcast, and believe me, there have been a few that I've had to reach out to. But I've had a show reel and I put it together, funnily enough, right before I reached out to the first TO that I actually landed a gig with. The show reel was good enough. It was actually enough to impress them. Funnily enough, all that experience working a desk at Gfinity and across multiple different games and having something to show for it rather than just saying, hey, I'm a commentator, pick me, actually worked. And, the Perfect World event actually was that event. I was able to land myself a role in that based on the fact that I had a show reel, and they were, happy with it. I got the full gig, and I'd been out of the game a little bit, and I wasn't actually too sure what to charge for my rate. So guess what? I actually reached out to one of the other commentators that was on the gig as well and said, hey, this is my situation. I haven't done commentary in a while. I haven't done online commentary in a while. What should I be charging? And they said, well, here's the going rate. And they gave me a range. And I went within that range. And that's it.
And that's how you do it.
And that's how you get paid appropriately. And that's how you land the gig.
First of all, the other guy doesn't want you getting paid more than him. And the other guy doesn't want you getting taken for a ride so that he comes back next year. So that's just what you do. And look, if I was working an event and someone got to be on the desk with me, it's totally okay for them to message me and say, yo, what's the deal with the rates? Because I'm already locked in, so I can just say, I know exactly what I got. If you want to go for more, go for it. Like, by all means, negotiate. So I think that should just be, people just need to know that's how it is. If you know someone who's already got the gig, and most of the time we do, there's the go-to people, like with the ESL, it was Jordan with PGL, maybe Blair. It's a good bet that he's going to be on any sort of Asian broadcast from now on. So just reach out and ask the simple question. But it's up to them if they want to tell you the truth or not. But you'll have your own compass by the end of it.
And they're not going to. They're in the same mindset that we're in, right? Like, funnily enough, they're probably even more protective of getting decent rates than we would be, right?
Yeah.
Because we're Aussies. They know that we get paid sweet fuck all compared to the rest of Europe. So they're going to go, well...
I don't think many people know that. I don't think... No. I think people just think that this pays exactly the same. They might think that there's a going rate and the TO tells us, well, this is how much we're paying everyone else, guys. So if you're okay with that, we're okay with that. And we go, yeah, that's really good. I love getting paid the same amount as Henry G.
I was talking to one of the FPLC boys the other day. I think it was probably like a month ago now. And he was like, how much do you get paid for that? Like, me? Just casting. No, he said that to me. And I was just like, yeah. And he's like, what? You get paid? And I was like, yeah. Did you think I was doing all these shows like for free? Like fucking, over and over, like, 6 days a week for 3 weeks straight, upside down sleeping patterns. He just somehow assumed I was getting like sweet fuck all for doing it because it's a game. And I was just like, what do you mean? How did you not comprehend that? Like, this isn't work.
I think that's an easy assumption to make, Mac, because when you watch Australian Counter-Strike, you must think like, shit, this is a great passion project. People would love to do this. This is top tier Counter-Strike. I can imagine myself sitting there doing that as a passion project. 16-14 every game.
Win your opponent's map pick.
Yeah. then a W is a W for the after game interview. And what's your favorite Macca's meal?
And we just hit our shots. Now, speaking of hitting some shots, I'm actually not going to go anywhere with that. I thought that would have been a great segue, though. That would have been pretty cool.
It would have been good if we had that
before we move on, did we define that show reels are important?
Yes.
Well,
okay. All right, there we go. We've answered that. Good. Now we can move on. Let's go.
Jordan has one as well.
Yeah, he's made his public. Obviously, he's he declared that he was freelance, and that was part of his
which you have to do once you've been affiliated with ESL, and obviously, like I said before,
that's where I went wrong.
Yeah, I'm sitting there every time he for the whole 2-3 weeks back to back. He's like, "Don't worry, guys, I'm still freelance. Just remember that." I'm there like, dude, I've been freelance this whole fucking time.
Don't worry.
Am I supposed to be telling people? Do they not know I'm freelance?
Yeah. Don't worry. The other TOs don't watch the ESL broadcast to hear that, Mac, so it's okay.
Yeah, trust me, none of them are watching it. Now, in terms of, I guess the local news that's been happening recently, we're going to move on, and we're going to, I guess, touch on just quickly. Empress Gaming launched. Nicole, who was actually on episode 17 of our podcast. We actually got the chance to chat to her. So, if you want to see just what her views are on certain things like content creation and the industry at large. So I'll check out episode 17. But she's actually just launched her own venture into, I guess, the organizational side of things. Now, Empress Gaming is the name of the organization, and it's very much a female-focused venture, trying to, I guess, showcase the various different talented women that we have in the industry. And obviously, in terms of what they're trying to put together, is trying to elevate and create opportunities for women within esports across the board, not just esports, but also within content creation and things like that. So really focusing obviously on her strengths and her knowledge. I mean, it's good to see something like that that's occurring, and I think they've got some plans obviously to function as a tournament organizer as well as have some I guess some stream team activities. I think most of the time they're not actually signing any teams per se. They're actually just signing content creators and then also organizing competitions as well. So really cool to see something like that. We don't really have anything like that currently running. I think there was some previous attempts to run some small community stuff, but nothing really with the weighting behind this. I think it's going to be some good positive steps forward, as well as creating some opportunities and some roles for women within the region.
Yeah, I think this will be really good to see what Nicole can do. Looks pretty good on the onset, like just being able to see that they've already got sponsors behind them and they've got the content creators locked in. So presumably they'd be getting something from that. So she's got some backing already, obviously using her networking from the Click days, which I'm not sure if she's still there or not. But
No.
Okay, yep. So I think she's got everything she needs to really be successful in this. I think they've got a Valorant tournament that they're doing already lined up. So I mean, geez, I saw
Nicole's going to be cast in that, right? I saw a little tweet, her looking for a
Really?
co-caster. That'll be something to see.
Yeah, look.
Dear.
Well, I hope their first foray into casting goes well. We all know what our first gig was like, so
Actually, mine was pretty good.
I think I was shitting myself the first time. I think it was just a standard ESL broadcast.
Yeah, mine wasn't anything that fancy. You must have been one of those ex-players that they roped onto the desk.
Yeah.
And they obviously had no idea how to charge either.
I was like one of the first ex-players, Jim.
Yeah, with the first wave. But I think, it will be interesting to see what they do. We all know our first gigs as well were pretty daunting.
There's a lot of constructive criticism that comes out of the first gig, I think, and
you hate the sound of your own voice.
You just got to be prepared to cop it. Oh, Nicole already hates the sound of her own voice. Don't you remember when she was on the podcast? So yeah, basically, good luck to them. Like, I really want this to work, and what I would really like is for them to venture into men's gaming afterwards, because I think, like, just having that business sense. It's a bit selfish to be working with the females, because I think she can actually do so much and grow so much bigger as well if it becomes a little bit more inclusive. So it'd be interesting to see. I'm sure this will be successful. I would really like to see, obviously, more women in esports in Australia that be catered for. Not saying more women to play esports, because I already know they do. I just think they need more catering for. We've tried before with InstaFrag, and you've tried with your WPGL leagues. So it's having something from the beginning with Valorant is really good for Valorant's community. So it'd be interesting to see if Nicole branches back into Counter-Strike or something like that. So yeah, just really hopeful that works out.
Awesome stuff. But you had something to say, Mac, or moments past?
Oh no, you just got me on the topic of like our first like debut sort of thing.
You're thinking back on.
I'm trying to find week 1 of CS:GO Gfinity Elite Series to see how that bloody went, because
Oofed.
There's probably going to be a very large improvement from then to now. I can tell you that much.
Oofed.
Anyway,
look,
I found week 3.
I had your hand. I had your hand, Mac, and I held it tightly.
You certainly did, and I'm very thankful that you were there to walk me through it all and
come on.
say about 30 times the amount of words I said every time we had a analyst segment.
This is the Paul Rudd Hot Ones gif all over again, isn't it?
Look at us. Just
Look at us. Huh? Who would have thought? Not me.
Yeah, now
I was quality
I'm working
though.
out of my bedroom. You're in an ESL broadcast studio. Look at us.
Just think how much better Gfinity would have been if I was there from the start.
Ooh.
Oh, two-person analyst desk. They were good weeks. They were good weeks.
They were.
The set wasn't really made for it, but yeah.
Especially when it's not COVID safe, that set. Especially when you forgot your shirt, but you didn't look out of place.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Fuck. Just that's what you pay for in the day rate. You know, you get the shirt included.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
Now,
bounce back real quick. Yeah, shout outs to Nicole. It's going to be great for all the females in the scene, and I'm sure it's going to be successful because Nicole is very passionate about what she does, and she's going to be a good head to be leading the charge.
I mean, if you've seen what she's done with Fresh Asian, she is successful, and she's got a proven path as well. So,
absolutely. Looking forward to seeing that one, blossom as the weeks and months go by. Now, going to move along, and this one's more of a rumor than anything else. We're into the rumor section, guys. We're into the rumor section.
Yeah, I like it.
I saw a post on Facebook for a certain glitch E-Sports. Now,
yeah, I was just looking at that before.
It's
what?
Glitch Gaming
Brisbane.
Entertainment. Now,
this one, right? Yeah, I got it.
This is rumored to be an entertainment venue in a similar vein to what you would see from Fortress, but in Brisbane. So that is potentially something to look out for. Now,
can I Karen them right now? I'm going to send them a message, say, hi, who are you? Can I please speak to the manager? With a smiley face.
I'm a big deal on the internet. I don't know if you guys have heard of me, but
I'll just, if they write back, because you know how some places have that like really good response time on Facebook.
They do, yeah.
Let's test this out, because if they don't respond, it's 10
typically
p.m. at night
replies
right
within
now.
a day, they say.
Oh, that's all right. Well, hopefully tomorrow they'll give me a reply and they'll say, hey, we're Glitch Gaming. This is what we do. And next podcast, I can tell you exactly what they're doing.
Well, either way, they claim to be Australia's esports theatre of dreams, and they're coming to Brisbane. So one thing worries me about that, and it is the use of the word theatre, because esports in cinemas is... well, it's a dangerous game for starters.
You think it'd be good. We all thought it would be great.
You thought it'd be great.
And
then
it's just hard to fill the seats.
Well, yeah, it's hard to fill the seats because they don't actually put the tickets for sale on their website, but as they should. But maybe, fuck it, I'm out of contract anyway. But
I was just like, this is a Monka moment.
Yeah, but look, as long as the cinema that they're potentially based in, this is all, conjecture, actually gets behind them, markets them, and supports them, that would be great. That would be a step towards success.
Anyone can be a streamer, huh?
Yeah.
Instead of gaming cafes, we're going to have streaming cafes.
As long as they have the right deal in place, I think they'll be fine. But I mean,
as long as they can sell alcohol without food, is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm looking at the contact details, and to me, automatically, it is straight away the group that is behind XP Esports.
Yeah.
So those guys there, they had they were invested in by one of the top property, commercial property people in Brisbane. Name escapes me, but they formed a group. Anyway, Glitch Esports is coming from the similar group that we're seeing do XP Esports stuff. They've seen a bit of an uplift in obviously their activity and things like that. We have no further information other than a very vague.
It's just the hype.
Declaration.
This is like what is Shade?
What is Shade? What was Shade?
This is just the hype train. That's all this is. We'll see how it goes.
We'll see how it goes. Either way,
look, we can't say no to more esports stuff, right?
No. I mean, it could be a potential competitor to Fortress. Who knows? And I mean, as long as they...
From another state.
As long as they don't have to do esports, they'll be fine. You know, if they can just do the bar and restaurant side of things, that'd be great.
Well, I mean, look. Yeah. Tough times.
I just think
cafe?
Anything can be good as long as the community gets behind it, and it is...
The community only gets behind it.
What's the word?
They listen to the community, though. Like, that's the two-way street factor here. It's like the community should... this only works if the community gets behind us. And right now, like...
You can't be for the community and be like this. La 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 la.
It's super important, right? That if you're asking the community to get behind it, like you've also got to get behind the community. You've also got to be able to show value to the community, show that you value the community, and we're just going to roll into it, right? We're going to roll into we're not really going to make this a significant section, but off the back of that, obviously, we're looking at what we've seen out of some of the Valorant First Strike tournaments. Needless to say, it hasn't been...
What have we seen?
It has not been a smooth road, Ian. It has not been a smooth road. We've had Fortress obviously taking lead with that one. Some questions and murmurs in the background around, was this actually put out to tender, or was this something that they were just organised in the background? Because obviously with other tournaments in the Ignition series, they've been put out to tender. People have seen briefs for those. This one, not the same sort of arrangement there. Obviously, then on the back of that, their first Valorant competition was met with some pretty big criticism from the community. It led to what has been some probably very disappointing reactions, given that a lot of community members, for example, were speaking out on some of the other bits and pieces around whether or not they should be operating from a studio, etc. They were then blocked on Twitter. They were then just sort of ignored. It's been a whole range.
I don't know about that one.
What's this?
Just the blocking on Twitter. That's just it just seems... It doesn't look good from an exterior perspective, you know. I didn't get blocked. I survived everything because I just try to be like, whoa, don't really want to touch this. The only qualm I had was when we got, issued a warning that the team that I was in with Tyson and Conky, and the boys, I think, someone said something that was not super PC, and then but it wasn't a horrible statement. And then someone else, we were just, it was the first or second round of these games. Someone else was like, oh yeah, let's 16-0 these or 13-0 these cunts or something like that. And they gave us a warning for swearing on our own stream because it was in the tournament, and apparently in the community guidelines or the whatever terms of service you bloody signed to go in the competition, it's you will be kind to people or something. I don't know. I didn't say any of this stuff. I might have said, a couple of gamer words, but we were fine the whole time.
Never been.
It was interesting.
Room at half time.
Yeah, and then they also had we played with. Because it was supposed to be no OT, even though after when you got to round of 16, then OT was on, and then we went to OT against the team that was Direwolves at that point. I wasn't there; I'd gone at that point, and because I was just subbing for the first
OT.
Yeah, and if you if you played on if you had OT on, it would flip the sides, but if you had OT off, you would stay on the same sides you were on. So it flipped the sides, and then they played one round, and then because it was being streamed, they called it, even though the players in the server weren't like aware of that rule and tried to keep playing. But I think the admin was in the server because it was, obviously being streamed, and then they finished the game. And it was just like a weird little clusterfuck. And I was watching because I think I had some kind of CS work on that day. So I was sort of like watching over the side, and then, said on Twitter, I was just like, what the hell? That's like broken. You shouldn't, like, why is this happening? Why has this happened? What are you going to do to fix it? Because this was all before they came to the decision to like force it back to replay that one round, which obviously sucks because you lose momentum and shit. And yeah, that was just rough. That also happened, I believe, in the OVO as well, where they forgot to turn overtime on, and after the one round of OT, it just straight away like went, oh, it's over, and the players like fully accepted it and were like, oh, that's fine. But then we were there like, oh, that's a little bit odd, and then we had to like do the same thing where you push it forward and replay the round from where it was up to see if obviously it goes to double OT, etc. But it's all about competitive integrity at the end of the day. And like whenever something goes on like that, it's really annoying. It's like that same sort of sour feeling where, say like back in the CG days, how there's always like the people will report the games, like if you know that someone's premium ran out halfway through, something like that. Yeah. And it's just such like a dog thing to do. Whereas like if you know that they're good to like buy the premium and they didn't actually notice that their premium wasn't there, and they were like, oh cool, I'll buy it like after the game or like whatever, then it's fine. But then there's also the issue where some people would say that, then they'd lose, then they wouldn't buy the premium. So you understand that's why the rule's in place, but it's just like ethically and like sportsman-like, there's so many things you need to like think about when you have rules like that,
Yeah, I think in this instance, it's more or less surprised that the TO, the mediator in all of this has acted in such a way, in the sense that like obviously there's been a few things that have happened in their competitions, and everything from deleting teams from brackets to the most recent with having invited teams then be seeded incorrectly, or some very questionable seeding in the competition in a Swiss stage, having the Swiss stage completed, then also seemingly conceding that their seeding was awful in the first instance and trying to make amends for it by then saying some teams had an easier run through the bracket and readjusting the seeding based on that, in turn creating a bigger mess. It seems as though that a total lack of accountability. And like, I feel like this is the first podcast topic that we had, that the accountability just isn't there. And I think that's probably the biggest thing, is that we are observing, is that they are having a difficult time getting the community on board, but it's not it's almost like, they're riding that bicycle in, and they've got exactly that stick in there.
I've been using this bicycle analogy so much since that. Just putting the stick in the front wheel and blaming everyone else.
Yeah. That seems what it's like. Obviously, in terms of them being one of the biggest. It's not really a huge market at the moment, but them being one of the bigger operators with some of the bigger tournaments, it's a little
that's the only
disheartening to see.
So yeah, it is, and I've just checked. I'm not blocked yet, but probably after this episode, even though apparently they don't listen. Yeah, so that's the thing though, Mac. You were saying about how you saw the shit go down, and you thought, well, I'm going to stay out of this and keep my hands clean because I don't want to get blocked. Yeah. Well, that's like that's the message that they're sending, isn't it? Like, don't fuck with us or we'll block you.
I wasn't going to say anything that other people hadn't already said, but much more thoroughly. Anyway, so I'm just like, well, look.
Oh yeah, obviously there were some heated, passionate people, obviously, right? So, and there were some hot takes that even I didn't agree with. And with those messages, it is about how you deliver them. And it can't be about like I'm right and you're wrong. It needs to be about the rising tide lifts all boats. And I think that's generally in esports in Australia, that's what we're like. And it can be seen sometimes like we're shitting on people or, you know, tall poppy syndrome or something like that, like as if I know what that is.
In some instances, they're like, oh, it's tall poppy syndrome. That's pretty damn narcissistic, if you ask me.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, look, just take it on the chin. You don't even, you know what you can do? You can actually just ignore it. You don't need to block it like some, you know, egotistical, emotional, you know, wreck. You can just ignore it. It's Twitter. Like most people who are big on Twitter tweet and then never read their replies.
Very
you know,
true.
like that's what you can do. You have that power. The people that I block are basically people that ruin their replies for everyone else because I don't have 10,000 followers.
Or they're hitting you with targeted advertising.
Yeah, all that, or they're telling me about Bitcoin or some shit like that. So, look, at the end of the day, I think there are a lot of experts, actual experts, not armchair experts in Australia, and those people don't want to see esports be done shit. And they will give free advice on Twitter. You can choose to take that free advice, or you can choose to block people and alienate yourself and then cry that you're being alienated. So I think, look, the choice has been made, obviously, of how they're going to deal with things. Going forward, all they can do is learn because, whoa, we've seen a whole heap of shit show, haven't we? So it's only uphill from here.
Yeah, I'd hope so. That's the stance that they take. Obviously, they've got a way to go to restore faith that they are able to continue to push forward and grow and learn and all those things. It's not as though they're infallible. We're not expecting them to be infallible, but it seems as though that when things have been called into question, it's like they just the hatch it comes over and they just bunker down and that's it. They go into the fortress.
Into the echo chamber.
Into the echo chamber. And that's it. That's the end of
discussion. Liking your own tweets.
But obviously, you know.
I think that's a pretty alpha move sometimes though. Like, you know, when you think your tweet is just
that's
so
a bit different,
cold,
right?
When
when I do that, it's clearly the alpha move to say like, yeah, this is the shit right here. It's not like everyone's piling shit on me. I'm going to like my own tweet just because, you know, everything I do is fantastic and amazing. Or you could be like, stop the count and then like your own tweet. That's an alpha move.
Or alternatively, the social media managers got their too many accounts logged into.
Tell your friends like this.
Oh dear. Now, finalizing the rumors segment, I'm hearing rumors of a potential eXRTEME event at the end of the year. Yeah, so keep an eye peeled, an ear peeled, everything peeled.
Keep an ear to the ground. Keep one eye open.
Keep an eye open for that one. That's kind of cool because I
guess watch this space.
Yeah, that event itself has been a staple in our region for quite some time. Obviously, we're not too sure what their plans are for even a potential finals. Obviously, we know that League of Legends did it, right? Like League of Legends with their world finals, flew teams over, quarantined
China is
them,
the safest place, apparently.
Yeah, quarantined them and put them up and then played the world stage. I don't think the plans are that extensive for eXRTEME, but we might
Not for eXRTEME. Well, they're doing it with Crossfire as well, by the looks of it.
There you go. If the event's big enough, then mountains apparently can be moved. No cost is too great, unless, of course, your talent. Now, in terms of our regular programming Mac, we have we opened up the mailbag. We had to blow out all the dust, chase out all the spiders, potentially even some other critters as well. But we have Mac's mailbag returning now. I don't actually have the little jingle. So that one,
what?
Oh, I'm so disappointed.
It's just
that
not
you
the
haven't
same.
got the jingle.
I know. We actually. Oh, here it is. Oh, what's the sound of that? It's a post-produced podcast. Oh, hang on. Did we just tell them it's post-produced?
It's not post-produced. Everything we say goes into this in case, even things that are, you know.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's time for that.
You know what tab it
Mailbag.
is.
Beautiful. Okay, you
Back
guys
in
nailed it. That's the one I'm going to be using when I edit this as well.
Yeah. Just use that one.
Very, very cool. All right. So it looks like we have 9 big questions. First of all, Squadron Leader Jess has asked, new podcast when? Well, whenever this one goes out. So hopefully this week, if there is time to do that. And if not, then, as soon as we fucking can. But now is the time.
Hopefully we keep to regular broadcasting.
Yeah, if we can find time between puppies being all crazy. No, she's gotten better though, So pretty happy with how the dog's
Sound
going.
like my dad, like you can only handle one thing a day. Like, can't do anything tonight. I'm going to the shops tomorrow morning.
She's like 8 weeks old and pissing and pooing everywhere. So
don't all 8-week-olds do that?
Maybe, but we can't put a nappy on this 8-week-old. And as much as I wish we could,
I've seen it done.
It's probably a pretty good idea, actually. I should go get some nappies. All right, moving on. Dograt19 has asked, with the collapse of the OPL and the subsequent players getting picked up for academy rosters in NA, would we see more NA or EU orgs looking to AU and Southeast Asia for up-and-coming talent, or are they not willing to take such a big risk? I don't know how big of a risk it would be, because all the oceanic talent that has gone overseas, that has been, handpicked, has done pretty well, right?
You've got to be good to get it. So, yeah.
I think the problem is it's not so much the fact that this current crop of players that have played the most recent version of OPL have had the chance. They've had the chance to show their skills, right? It's the next batch. They've had
what, 3 years, 4? Oh shit, 5 years of OPL funding up their sleeve.
Correct.
And I remember the Aussie, the CS players, because I used to be one, were really pissed about League of Legends players who were shit 5 years ago, were getting way higher salaries than we were because Riot was funding it. And everyone was like, I wish we could be like League of Legends, just like everyone is going to Valorant and now being like, I wish we were like Counter-Strike. It's like, how did that turn out? But it turned out pretty damn good for these guys that stuck to it for 5 years, got their professional chops, and now have a position in an NA League or EU team, sorry. What about tomorrow's guy? What about the grassroots? Where's that going to come from now? There's literally what is the motivation to play League of Legends in Australia right now?
The leaderboard, you can be the toppest of the challenger.
How much exposure points do you get for the leaderboard?
You can probably put it on your Twitter profile, your bio, and say, once 5th in Oceania for this game, probably could be top 200 NA. What do you reckon?
Yeah.
I reckon that's a great selling point. And say, look, I've played in a competitive team.
Just put in how much prize money you've won playing Fortnite. See how that goes.
Yeah, true. That might work too.
Now, you're right, Ian. It's not so much a concern that the subsequent players from this current crop are going to get picked up. If they're good enough, they'll go. It's no issue there. It's the next guy. It's the next group of players that are literally going to have to ladder play and not show their wares in a team. They're not even going to be able to show whether or not they're marketable, for example, right? Like a lot of teams are picking up players that are also marketable. Mm-hmm. So the fact that you play some solo queue and then you might have a Twitter, that's not going to get you anything over the line. It's the fact that there was a broadcast here. There was your
name was in lights. Your name was in lights.
A show to be a part of.
I mean, if anything, I'm just disappointed that there's not many of them that have got the chops in 5 years to make it overseas. Not like China.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. In our Dota league, we've got Aussie talent all over the place in top teams.
Even in broadcast. Even in terms of...
obviously, especially on broadcast.
Yeah.
I don't know if some of them are still around, but we've had our chance. We've had our time in the sun, so to speak.
How long do you reckon before Uber does his first CS event?
Hey, Uber started in CS.
No, but before his first one back since Overwatch.
I don't think he would.
I think his gym sessions at the moment.
Yeah, there was some subtweeting going on there with Uber, and I was a bit worried about what he was saying. But I think he was saying because he was in on this debate as well with the day rates. If you remember, he chimed in there and was retweeting away, kicking up a storm because obviously in Europe it's rife. But
With the day rates or with the hourly rates?
just
with undercutting.
people coming undercutting.
Oh, the undercutting stuff, right?
Especially you got to think about these tier 3 games like Overwatch. So basically, he was saying something about, do what you're good at. Don't try and do something you're not good at. And I think he subtweeted that he wasn't happy with his performance with IEM because he started out in IEM over here. And I think he feels like he robbed that from someone who, he robbed it from Machine because he was Aussie and probably cost less. And so I think he subtweeted like he regrets that. But I thought he did a good job, and I liked him being there, actually. And I would like to have him back again if I ever got that gig.
I think it was part of, winning the crowd over, right? Like having a more Aussie talent pool where obviously in later years they were able to get other talent on as part of the main commentary team. So, but I think going back onto the topic, I think we're just going to see less and less, honestly. We're going to see less and less players get picked up as time goes on, as the stars fade, and people forget about people in this region. There's no way to showcase them.
Yep, it's going to be on equal pegging as 1.6. Like, and where's that now? Some new game will come out and they'll go to that. No reason. Like Valorant, there's like League of Legends players could be going to Valorant right now.
Yeah. Or alternatively, another MOBA might come out and they'll go to that. Who knows?
Or Fortnite or something like that. So
it seems like they're all in Valorant at the moment, judging by a few people's cues.
I don't know. I haven't caught my bus to Strathfield Station with all the Year 7 kids to know what's hip these days, but I know League of Legends was definitely up there at the time. So I don't know if they're playing that anymore. Maybe cricket will take over for a bit. That's my finger on the pulse hot take.
Well, if you think about it, cricket is like the perfectly socially distanced sport.
Oh, yeah.
Even to the point where you can make sure that your batsmen run on opposite sides of the pitch, right? The only concern would be their proximity to the umpire. So I think cricket might just be...
Can you hear
and you can't actually, this might be the real kicker, is the fact that you can't run 4 slips because they'll just be too fast spaced. But actually,
you could have them like offset, right?
Yeah, you can have them offset. I'll need to crack out my scale model of Test cricket, the game.
I had to make an adjustment.
Cricket will make a big resurgence in this new world, this brave new world of ours. Next question, Mac.
Yes, of course, that's my job to move along. Cool. Kind of in relation to the recent kick up in COD and Overwatch in terms of content contracts, do you think there should be a players' union in each game? How much power should a publisher and dev have over its professional players?
If the publisher is paying the player's wage, like they're partly subsidizing it, for example, League of Legends, OPL, Riot was subsidizing that. If they're doing that, then I can see, a great deal of sway that they're going to have over what they create content with.
They own you. They own you.
Yeah. They employ you. So I think, the content contracts is just that next evolution of player contracts that we're going to see. I mean, in terms of player contracts now, even just for games like Counter-Strike in Australia, I'm not surprised. I wouldn't be surprised to pick up a player contract now and say that you must be available for X amount of days for content creation for the organization. And if not, then, a reasonable excuse or arrangement must be made or something like that. So I've seen it in contracts before. I'm pretty sure there were players, for example, in Gfinity that had that in their contract, particularly if you were from Gfinity's branded teams. So they must have been available for content for maybe like 3 days out of the month or the season or something like that. Just depends on what where they lived as well. But yeah, I'm not surprised to see it. And I think maybe where things get a little bit murky is if, say, for example, you're a Twitch streamer as well and you want to play another game on stream. Like, not everyone is going to dedicate their life to playing Call of Duty or Overwatch the entire time. Because let's be real,
That's what
Is there
it's
more
like
depth
in
to
China.
this drama, by the way? Is there more like, did someone get in trouble who's like a COD player for playing a different game, or like the Overwatch players? Is that what's going on, or is there?
I'm actually not too across that, but I imagine it might be
Yeah.
something like that. If they're, if you're on stream in downtime or something like that, you're contracted to play Overwatch. So therefore, you must only be seen playing Overwatch. You know what I mean? In terms of, it could be that
I think
actually be
Overwatch
ridiculous.
was like that. I think Overwatch League was like that. I think
It could be ridiculous like that. For example,
I know in China, if you are sponsored for a particular game like Crossfire, you can only stream Crossfire. You cannot be seen playing PUBG. If you're talent for Crossfire, you cannot be seen playing PUBG. A competitor at the time.
Interesting. It'd be like Britney Spears and drinking a Coke.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Can't be seen in public doing something for a competitor. I'm not surprised to see it, to be honest. I think that's like just the next evolution of sports management having their fingers in esports contracts.
Yeah, look, it sucks, I guess, but that's just the nature of the beast. If you're getting paid to play tennis, maybe you can play Call of Duty, but not if you're being paid to play Call of Duty. I don't think you can play another esport. And if your main income is coming from that, I don't think you can really say anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's similar to...
You're an ambassador.
Yeah, I guess like, how you have brand ambassadors, and that's like a big thing in Oz for like, some higher level, I guess, content creators and stuff. Like if they're on one like computer company, if they like, they're just pretty much not allowed to chime in about other computer companies or promote any other computer companies, right? Or they'll break contract and potentially lose what would be like, a decent chunk of their earnings. So, it's all in the contract. It's all about how you present yourself. But, that's why it's important to read what the contracts are before you sign them and, have someone look at them, negotiate it if you feel like you can or feel like something in there isn't right for you. It's part of the job, right? Is having a negotiation. And if the people that want you to sign the contract aren't open to a negotiation, to a discussion on how you could improve this for yourself, then they're not fucking worried about you at all.
Yeah, I think it goes to show that if this is being enforced and it's seemingly coming as a surprise to some of these players, then they haven't actually read and understood their contracts, because reading and comprehension are two different things. So that's pretty clear to me that they feel they're hard done by, but maybe it's because they haven't actually done their due diligence.
All right, cool. Well, we're getting on with this one, so let's put our foot down. What's the next one? At Maverick Master, big boy Mav. Now that we're all emerging from the Winchester and everything has blown over, 2021 predictions, more online, or will we see live events return? Or will the dust settle in 2022? Yeah, that's a big question, because I thought 2021 would be like a great year, but then overseas, like they still don't have a good stranglehold on, COVID prevention, especially in like the US and shit, which is where a large amount of, the LAN and esports landscape was, even though now it looks like it's kind of shifting from there all to EU, which is even more unhealthy for us, because getting a fucking flight to EU is pretty damn expensive from AU, which is, unfortunate. And that'll make it really hard. And we also have pretty tight restrictions in terms of, was it Qantas who said they're not going to be flying out of Australia until the end of 2021? I think there was like
be right there.
Crazy announcement the other day, and I was like, holy fuck, like, did you just write off international travel for Australians next year?
They've got to do their budget projections. if they don't have to buy fuel for planes that they're not going to fly overseas, why?
Yeah. But I think that was just for Qantas. So
don't forget,
there's probably still a chance that other companies could.
There was the recent announcement of the Pfizer vaccine. There's some Brisbane vaccine. So the vaccine is actually a real thing now. So but that will take 6 months or at least to distribute. I don't know where they're at with the testing. I know the Pfizer one's been through its 40,000 people test and the placebo tests. So that is at least a little bit promising. Maybe you will need to, like back in the old days when we were in our before some people were born in esports, you used to have to get your immunization before you could travel to certain areas. You still do for some places in like Africa, etc. So I think it will just come back to needing your immunization for coronavirus before you can travel. And I think next year is actually looking pretty good now, towards the end of next year for international stuff. But just remember, in Europe, they're also taking that zero fucks given approach, a lot of them. So you expect them to be hosting a DreamHack anytime soon in Sweden and stuff like that. So, look, I just hope LAN does come back very quickly, because that's where the real show is. And I feel like that's where people get their money and their hard-earned. Going to these events and doing the player profiles in person. And like, do you remember we used to watch the LANs back in the day when there was LANs, and there would be like the team interview, and that one person would talk about their lead up into the tournament and everything like that. And that was the real show for me. And I think that's where TOs got their money. And I think that's where players earn their reputations. And I think this online world is not anything like what I thought it would be like. And people haven't really done enough for it. Considering literally every pro player is sitting at home, either in quarantine or just not doing a whole lot these days. No one's going out or has a life. I'm still not seeing every single pro player streaming on Twitch. I'm not seeing mad content coming out. So it's been pretty underwhelming, to be honest. I think, look, next year with Qantas, who knows how that can change at any time, I guess. They just got to make their projections.
Yeah, I think the other you pretty much covered, the international aspect, but I think locally as well. I think looking at events, I'm curious as to where the money's going to come from for those live events locally. So that for me is probably it's less about the COVID aspect, because I think by the end of 2021,
like the recession?
it sounds as though there'll be a handle on the health aspect of this, but it's also the economic side of this, and obviously having a huge, as I said before, player in the game, OPL pulling up stumps. People look at that and go, well, actually, hang on, is this a sound investment? Because 2 years ago you were telling me that esports was on the rise, there were leagues popping up everywhere, but it seems to have suffered the same fate as many other businesses during this period in time. So I think consumer confidence, investment confidence in esports will probably need to return. It may actually be the crowds return quicker to these events and some consumer confidence, to be honest. So
I think that's fair to say. Someone might have to go out of pocket, because I think the crowds will definitely turn up now. There's any excuse to get out of the house will probably work when they're allowed to. The recession obviously being through one before, with 2008 and the CGS dying, collapsing, and basically ruining everything, not only because it was financially not viable but sustainable, but also because it was stretched over two versions of Counter-Strike. I think seeing it now is like, we're going to lose some sponsorships. Logitech won't fork out a ton like they probably do for ESL. You already see with the AUNZ broadcasts, you see HyperX is no longer there. They've had times with Razer, Zowie. Everyone's had their little bumpers. And I think what people at home don't realize is, if you're not seeing the bumper when you watch an ESL broadcast, they're not paying for the ESL broadcast. And that's something that's really concerning. If you're seeing like a Zowie broadcast and you're seeing Zowie bumpers, well, guess what, guys? That's why it's a Zowie broadcast. So I think people need to understand that when they watch ESEA and they're like, oh, ads, damn ads, MDL ads. Well, it's like, hey, they're paying for literally everything. I think they're allowed to spruik their product here and there. You've got Dare on the bench. They're paying for that. If you have a look at some of the recent stuff, there's nothing on the bench. There's no bumper. Who's paying for it? Someone's got to be paying for things, guys. And I think esports is what you were saying, Jim, about how, 2 years ago you said this would be a really big deal. Yeah, well, that 2 years has gone by, and we've literally taken 2 steps backwards and 2 steps forward we're in the exact same position because nothing has changed. We've just been allowing the status quo to continue. No one's providing value. And now we're all getting overtaken by these streamers like Fresh Asian, stuff like that. Josh Dub, who's the other guy? Laserbeam, these YouTube guys that are just doing it for themselves. They're making bulk money and providing value to those platforms. And there's not a CS player in the world that's doing it.
They're taking the entire budget for competitions for themselves.
Yeah. Like if I'm Zowie, if I'm a big player like Logitech, I'm going to those guys who don't even need to win anything. They just need to be on camera.
Yeah, they're like literally in the eyes of so many consumers that if they say, hey, Logitech's pretty damn good, that's going to get maybe like, a couple of hundred people buying like fucking something Logitech related just because a guy that they all praise said that, and if we try to sell it on a broadcast, it's going to be not as effective.
The thing is, yes, what you're saying is exactly right. And for a long time, these sponsors, you see all the pro teams have got that shit all over their jersey. We don't see that when you're at home, dude. We don't see that when you're playing online. So I don't even know what the latest mouse that all the pros is using is right now. I don't know. How am I supposed to know? Well, the pros should be telling me. Back in the day, I was buying a Funk mousepad because all the pros had Funk mousepads. I was buying SteelSeries headphones because SK Gaming was sponsored by SteelSeries. And then I'd go to LAN and everyone else would have Sennheiser headphones because 3D was sponsored by Sennheiser. And they were doing mad production videos that said SteelSeries, 3D sound test. Like there was proper content and it was about getting these products out there.
It's not even that. It's a failure to adapt, right? Like I'm seeing better product placement from sim racers than I am top Counter-Strike pros. They're sitting here, right? So like imagine here's my background and this is available real estate in. This here is available real estate and this is where my sponsors are having their products stacked to the roof because I've just won the race and I'm getting interviewed post-race.
Yeah.
As Ian demonstrates all available signage in his room.
Check this out.
You could sponsor that box. What's he doing?
But we're seeing maybe a few of these teams, ones that are still playing in training centers.
I am ready for ISO. So, yeah, I could be getting paid for that.
Well, you're getting paid by Everglide as well? The gaming glide?
No, what's it called? I need Vaseline sponsors next.
Jesus.
I'm lonely.
That's just for the recovery. But
I've got to find you a missus.
For example, Mac, all right?
Yes.
You're on fan cams.
Yeah.
Would you put a banner behind you on fan cams that says something like if you had a sponsor?
Yeah, I think. Yeah. I was trying to put on my Puma shoes on me for one thing, but I don't know if that one got used.
You have to be careful with that. It's a good idea, but you'd have to be careful.
But what I'm saying is we're seeing, a lot of online content through the broadcast. Why are these players not being sent banners to put up behind them for all their sponsors? Because
remember we used to see like the DXRacer and be like, oh yeah, Simple uses a DXRacer. And that would be like the extent of the Navi branding. And he has obviously you have like the Navi mouse, you have the Navi everything. I know, I'm sorry, I just sprinked a product without being paid for it. Again. But that's exactly right. I mean, CS teams are just doing it all wrong. I don't think they understand, man. They're all young. I can't believe it. Do you remember when I said, can you believe how old Nico is? Like, what do we expect? These guys are in their early 20s. Yeah, they've been doing it for 10 years, but like, holy crap. No wonder they just don't get it. No. But they're hurting themselves. And I think Thorin says it all the time. You're hurting yourselves by not doing it. Don't cry wolf foul in a few years when potentially your job doesn't exist. You did nothing to keep it. except play.
Yeah, well, it was like with like last week, that Red Bull Fight or Flight competition coming up. We did a showcase night. I played with Vandy, which was really fun. And then, just for like a little bit, I had some cans behind me and I was like, oh yeah, look, great, etc. Like, watch this next game. I'm going to pop off and just like had some Red Bull and I got me wings, whatever. And then, I had like not many people watching that Arvo. And one of my dudes in chat, who's like one of my regulars, comes in and he's like, fucking sell out, like going like that. And I'm sitting there like, man, I'm like trying to do something here, which, is positive for myself and, positive as a relationship for me and like a brand. And if you cared, you wouldn't be yelling sell out. You would be like, wow, fucking good job. You're trying. Whereas
that's just a culture.
Other people who were trying to do the same thing didn't do like any form of like help for marketing for even like the competition or for like Red Bull as a brand. Red Bull's a fucking huge brand. Like they are a massive brand.
Oh, I know. I had to enter into contract negotiations with them, and it wasn't like I wasn't even the one I wasn't even getting anything out of it. Like they are the kind of brand that how do you say it? They got fuck you money. Like
yeah.
They do. They just got fuck you money because their product sells. They know it. The offices they've got are sick globally. Like you walk into any Red Bull office in any country and it's fucking sick.
Yeah.
And yeah, they've just got fuck you money. So yeah, they're rolling. And in terms of brand power, they're the brand. Honestly, they see themselves as a brand that can build other brands.
Yeah.
Like the goodwill that your brand will get by being associated with Red Bull, that for them is like, that's their game.
Yeah. Anyway, off the back of that, it's like, when you get a chance to do any sort of brand activation, etc., you got to shoot your shot. It's like when we had the fan cams, I was like, fuck it, you got to shoot your shot. Like I went in one night and then who was it? I think MC noticed I was in there and Chad noticed I was there. And then the producer was like, oh, do you want to come on at halftime and tell us your thoughts? Because I think that's when like 100 Thieves were playing, or maybe they were like hadn't played yet and they were playing later that night. And Chad was like, oh, like, are you here for the boys? Like, what are they? No, I think they were playing actually. That's why I got interviewed. And yeah, I just got to go on. I didn't get like camera time, but I got, my voice time, and it was something, main broadcast. It's really hard to get on the main channel. Like even with the amount of work we've done in the last 2-3 months, whatever it is.
Don't get me started on
because there's like there's a tiny chance that like the Asia Games could push out an extra hour or two and then maybe overlap with the main broadcast.
Oh,
we have to be on the B stream.
That is my pet peeve. That is my pet peeve.
Nowhere near as much like anything.
Yeah. They would rather put a rerun. They would rather put a rerun on that main stream than an Asian live game.
They got an ingest server. You can mirror the broadcasts, right?
Yeah, I don't know why or what or how. I think they're just...
It's because they have other games starting before yours could potentially finish, is what they say.
Yeah. I know that there's a way where you can flip it or swap it online.
No one wants to be that guy like ABC News that says, and now for those viewers at home who are interested in watching the European games, stay on this channel. If you're interested in the Asian games, go to the CSGO B cast. No one wants to do that. I don't know why.
Your local news will now begin.
It's like even just like a tiny small thing, which is my pet peeve, is like if I quickly go in chat and then like I see someone type !casters and that like hasn't been set up, and I'm like, fuck, that's a missed follower. Yeah. I'm like, oh fuck, no one knows who we are. Like this guy doesn't know who we are. No one knows who we are. What the fuck's going on?
Who do we abuse on Twitter?
Yeah, exactly. They're probably just going to abuse me anyway and say,
dude,
can you please shut the fuck up?
It's like the best thing.
It's
engagement. If you're not getting abused on Twitter, you're not doing your job right.
Very true. Anyway, that was a very long answer to that question. In short, next year, probably more online, hopefully some domestic lands. If there's international lands and we somehow get an ability to go there, fucking great. I'm just trying to hurry this up because we're 2.5 hours deep here. We're going all the way.
Oh, wait, this is coming out in two parts. This is coming out in 2 parts.
We're going full fucking Jordan here. Where he's like, we're going to milk this one. We're going to get double the viewers by halving this. We can put it in quarters.
We get the same viewers. Like
but it's about the interaction, right?
Just put this Mac mailbag at the end of the halfway mark of the real thing, and then we'll.
We might just make Mac's Mailbag a separate podcast.
We fully could. At this point, it's like, news,
This
rumors,
is what the people want.
mailbag, beautiful.
Yeah.
And then shit talk on the other side, all the shit talk tied into all of it. Anyway, moving on, at T_A_Gurit, so tag Gurit. I'm sure it's been covered previously, but expansion of thoughts on governing bodies in esports, and if it had to be done right, how would you do it?
I wouldn't.
I don't have too much to say on this because
Someone else
they
can do it.
exist. They exist, and someone else can do it.
Are they needed desperately? Are they needed desperately? Yes.
They've got to
Am I
unite the
gonna do it?
clans. Ian,
No.
they've got to unite the clans.
Yeah, well, look, I am happy about the inclusion of the Aussie guys. That is good. Dex is in there on that CSP AA, whatever it is. So that's good because the way that the world ranking works basically fucks Australia. So it's good to have an Aussie on there. All of them, they all fuck Australia. Like, yeah, look, I don't think we're that good. All rankings fuck Australia, whether they mean to or not. That's just what it is. There was the RMR adjustment. I think, Mac, you would be across this, right? Where they've done something so that shitty territory quals get some decent RMR points now. And that gives Renegade some chance to get to some tournament once a year, other than the majors. But look, I come from a point where I preferred the game when it was global. And if it had the best teams in the world, yeah, that's really good. Like, it has the best teams from every region. Obviously, the best team in the world is going to be there. But now they're going down a path where they would rather have the top 10 teams in the world. And if they're all from Denmark, then fuck it, we'll just have a Denmark tournament. So, and for me, I don't want to watch that. I don't give a shit about that. So, look, the rankings really fuck Australia over. So it's good to see that we have some representation in the CSPAA, and maybe that can have some sort of change, because now that 100 Thieves doesn't exist, we are even more fucked over and going backwards. And then when you add in Valorant taking all the burnt out pros, or even just the pros that are bored, like, that's fucking us over even more. So we definitely need that CSPAA to say, hey, what about these little regions over here that they might not be number one in the world, but effectively they've been OPL'd. So it's the exact same thing as the OPL. Like, they've got no legs. They won't be able to get into a world tournament. They won't be able to produce world stage players like JKS.
It was like a message, didn't message. You know how they have like the chat question time on HLTV Confirmed? Prof, like, asked him, or like, what's going on? Like, can you do something to fix up the AU team's rankings? Because like, they're just constantly going downhill on like at least the HLTV rankings, because they're just playing with each other over the time. Yeah, and he said he'll sort something out, and like, I think they did, and now they're a little bit higher. Even with the ESL, like the Pro Tour points as well, they're like quite highly ranked because of how many points they have compared to like another couple of other regions.
I remember there was an adjustment that came out, and I thought, well, that's a little bit better, but we're still kind of fucked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to be fucked because of how little international experience, like, even the best team in the country has had this year. So they're, they should have been overseas. How many times? Like fucking 8 times or something.
I mean, even with Renegades backing them, I actually expected before COVID for them to be based overseas. But remember the Greyhound model? They don't want to go overseas and leave Australia behind, but they're just fucking themselves. And I wish people would stop doing that and just focus more about their own careers and worrying about everyone else. I've never begrudged Vox for going overseas. I've never begrudged anyone for getting onto higher and better things, because at the end of the day, that shit sells us. When you go overseas and you do well, you're selling this talent pool down here in Australia. So, yeah, anyway, continue, Mac. Sorry.
Yeah, I can't remember where I was going with it, but
I think I stopped you at the right time, because I think it was just like, yeah, fuck those guys.
Yeah, edge of the rant and end of the rant.
They should be overseas. You're right, Mac.
They should be overseas. Beautiful.
Yeah. In terms of governing bodies, though, like,
yeah,
it's just not going to happen for games, like individual games. It's not going to happen. I think if there's going to be a governing body, it has to be like a players' association, almost like an athletes' association at a local level within Australia. or New Zealand or wherever it
Yeah.
is. It's just something that gets them more benefits in the eyes of the government. That's basically it.
It's like saying there should be a talent union.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Fuck
there
that.
should
I'm
be.
not doing it.
No, it's too much work.
But that'd be nice.
Only to have that guy undercut me? Only to have
Yeah.
that guy undercut me and charge half my rate? Fuck that.
Yeah, it'd be an interesting thing. Like, even if there was just a talent agency, I think, Rob might be on Nicole's talent agency that she's doing, but that's the only Aussie, like, domestically, that I know is on any talent agency. I don't think anyone else has signed up with one. I've spoken to a lot of people that have dabbled in the idea, but that's a conversation for another time.
Yeah.
The Esports Social Club talent agency is not released its rate card yet to anyone.
Exactly.
It's pretty good, though.
Given that, okay, so this is from Chris the Average, long-time listener, big fan of this man. Given that ESIC have said they are still investigating possible match fixing in the region, how far could the ramifications go in a worst-case scenario? Worst-case scenario, like, we're going to lose half our fucking scene. And I feel like that is something that is a reality. Like, there is a lot. I've spoken to a lot of people who, while playing, have also been betting on games and that, like, ones that they're not involved in. And that's what, a lot of a couple of the people that already were banned for. So I don't know how recent those bans were, but
I don't think they'll get banned for betting on any game as long as they didn't bet on their own game.
True.
From what I heard, like, I think one or two of them got banned for, like, 100% have never bet on, like, their own matches.
Okay, but you've got to remember they're also taking into account that, like, people could have organized it with other people or spoken to other people, etc. So,
yeah.
But it
a
is
lot
a
of
concern.
the finer details, yeah.
It is a concern. Obviously, gambling is a huge thing in Australia. We all love a good punt. And I remember back in the day, I used to also bet on the major games, like obviously that I weren't involved in. So you'd have a look at the even when there was CS:GO Lounge. Do you remember? So this is before the Valve announcement of saying, like, "Yo, stop fucking betting on stuff, you idiots." So yeah, I mean, it's your passion, it's your favorite sport. You know something about it, and you're in. You can make a buck. You're going to do that. But I think we need to be a little bit realistic when they say don't do it anymore. That they kind of mean it. I don't think we're going to be held back that much, though, Mac. I don't think it's going to be as widespread.
I think worst case scenario,
yeah,
worst case scenario is that Australian matches just altogether get stricken from the books, right? In the sense that they just don't take bets on them. That loses so much exposure for Australian CS. It's like, okay, overseas bettors, whatever. It's local bettors as well. Like, people aren't going to be drawn to watch the matches because there's otherwise no incentive to watch them. So we all know what it was like without HLTV coverage for some of the games and things like that. Well, what about no coverage?
Yeah, a good example is, like, where Valorant is at the moment. It's really hard to see those viewers pop, especially domestically, because as far as I'm aware, there's no betting on it. There's no betting sanctioned on it, or maybe there is.
Can you even watch the games, Mac? I haven't seen a Valorant tournament cast. Is there one around?
The one with the Chiefs one we did the other week.
Fraction of the games get streamed.
Was really good, and that's why I did that one for, like, a bit less than usual, is because it was one of those
$50 a day,
not much, pretty much, not much budget for it, and it was online. I was at home,
so it was an oversight,
and there was nothing else. Like, I've been waiting for some fucking Valorant to cast for like 2 months since the order one. Like,
well, this is the thing.
There's nothing to cast, so there's no way to get practice other than, like, wanting to do, like, watching VODs and casting on VODs, and that's not fucking fun. It's not live. There's not the pressure that you need to cast well. So,
So basically, you got blue balls into taking a lower rate.
Yeah, because it was the same. There was, like, I got offered like LPL, but that wasn't heaps, and I was like, well, it also ended up clashing with, like, a couple of the things I've got coming up. With ESL, or maybe even, like, on the last weekend. I can't remember when the LPL finals were planned. So I was like, well, I'm going to be out for that anyway. So what, you want me to do the season and not the finals? So that's another question. Also, it's just, in bad taste to work for, like, so little money for like one TO and then, work for your normal rate for the other, because they're like, well, why are you doing this? And, you can have the argument like, Valorant's a new game, no one's a fucking expert in it yet, so I don't feel like I can charge my rate for it. So it is what it is. But look, it's hard because especially with Fortress, they did that thing where they pushed out fucking Valorant for a whole month in the region because they tried to figure out how they were going to do the fucking area locked stuff.
You mean the shit that we're doing right now? They tried to figure out how to broadcast the game or anything remotely using technology where people can talk to each other on a call.
Yeah, look, however you want to spin it.
They took a month to do that. Okay, cool. Continue.
They pushed out the scene. As far as I'm aware, there was supposed to be another Ignition series in that time from a different TO, different org, whichever one was running it, and that got cucked from it. So the whole scene missed out on another competition, which is pretty unfortunate. But look,
the check boxes just keep on being ticked.
Yeah. But yeah, where were we going with this one? What's the question?
You were talking about how you were struggling to get a Valorant game, mate.
Yeah. I went very far off topic. Anyway, so because we started talking about...
Sorry, I was being a quick one.
Yeah. The old betting. So how far could it go with the ramifications in a worst case scenario for this betting situation? Mate, I'm bloody bleeding dry with just passionate topics, all right?
I just think, look, worst case scenario is that there is no betting because no one's covering it because it's too much of a risk.
There's no money.
There's like, if the bookies don't think that they can make any money from it, they're not going to cover it. Like, that's the whole reason they got into esports in the first place, is because they thought they could, use it as a funnel to get people to bet on horses.
Yep.
And we could talk about that now, about betting funnels and things like that. But the point is, it's a funnel to get people in to spend their money. Okay, cool. You know something about esports. Well, you can get a lot more value out of your bet if you top a multi up with a bloody table tennis game from Russia. You know that? You know nothing about it, but you get good odds. And maybe that pays off. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe you lose all your money. Anyway, you got here because of esports and we took your money on horse racing.
Yeah.
We would like.
Well, I already said my worst case scenario is like there's just, a quarter of the scene, half the scene gets fucking wiped out, like all the good players that.
I don't think it'll be pandemonium. If it is, it's disappointing, but.
Yeah.
Then we might all be out of a job and you'll be fine on Valorant. So.
Only if there's budget.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. But there's not much money in it. Anyway, it's another conversation for another time rather than me going on big tangents yet again. All right. Elfish guy. How much would you charge to cast 1 day of Valorant? So that's more
Mac, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, well...
How much wouldn't you charge?
Hopefully my day rate. I wouldn't go and discuss an hourly rate, but that's what we discussed
I'd
earlier.
do hourly for Valorant. $150 an hour.
Beautiful. Well, Conky said he'd do it for 3 crayons and a chocolate milk. So, he must love his milk to do it for that.
$150 an hour I'd do it for. That's experience, though. That's what you're paying for. The fact that I can get the job done in 2 hours when it takes others 3, that's why.
You got to, take into account that the games in Valorant are shorter as well than CS. So you might want to up that rate, knowing that the broadcasts are in total going to be a little bit shorter.
No, I charge in hourly blocks.
Oh, there you go.
I'm like a phone plan.
You like roll over, 10 minutes into the next hour, it's another 2 hours. Sorry.
It's a flagfall. The flagfall fee as well. Don't forget.
Yeah. And the sign-in fee, make sure that's in there too.
Yeah.
You couldn't, to answer the question, you couldn't pay me to cast Valorant. How about that?
Yeah, well, you're a hater, so you're gonna be on that side of the fence.
Come see me when you got your Riot contract.
Yeah.
Hey, they pay pretty good day rates. I'm saying the League of Legends casters weren't exactly left, basically trying to scrap for some crumbs.
No, they were getting paid well by the sounds of it. By all accounts, I think if our day rates match that, we wouldn't have much. We'd be all in fancier houses and nice backdrops and
might own a house, maybe.
I mean,
Not in Sydney.
No, not in Sydney. No.
well,
Not
Well,
where
look,
we're forced to be. I don't want that caddy shack up the road.
You could make do. 10 a month.
I think they were making a pretty
ago.
good salary.
I did rate one of the replies though, because Jordan asking what we'd charge.
I couldn't help
He
myself.
holds all the cards.
Are you talking about Ian's comment of
Yeah.
wait,
It's
someone
a house of cards, and
some
Jordan's
random
holding them all.
Yeah. You have everyone's rate card and you're asking us, which got a banging 9 likes. Great job with that one.
Probably the
Oh, and
most
Jordan
likes I've
didn't
ever
like
had.
it. Oh, you and Jordan have beef now. Oof.
You up on the
Yeah,
next
yeah.
podcast.
Mate, he's German. We always had beef.
Yeah, true. Well, going on to
Wellington?
the final question. Final question
Too
on
hard
the
to make.
mailbag. Benji Ose has asked, who is the CEO of esports?
I love that meme. It's a good one.
I don't know who the esports CEO is currently, but I am currently talking to the former esports CEO. So maybe he'll be
Yourself.
Well, I
yeah.
think if anyone thinks they're the CEO of esports, I reckon it's probably Sean. I reckon he'd be down to claim that title. He's been around.
Has he?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
He's seen some shit.
I don't know. Well, he slept through a couple of podcasts, so, we had to wait on him. That's all right.
we gave him the executive summary though. As a CEO, he expects that.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Yeah.
I miss Sean. He's back over in WA now too, right?
Yeah, I've been catching up with him a bit.
Yeah. Well, if you
Still
see
up to
him,
his neck
miss-
in work.
I miss everyone. I miss fucking... Bring Lands back. Can we get there? I just want to see
I think
everyone.
It's going to be really... I was in it... I don't know if what you guys have been able to do with COVID over there, but WA doesn't give a fuck. And I went over to this thing called the Monday Markets where Sean lives. And,
the street markets.
Yeah. The street markets. Apparently you went there, Jim.
Yeah, the food market and street market stuff.
So
Sick.
it was packed. Everyone was there, right? I'm talking like a proper crowd.
Yeah.
It
Like
was
shoulder to
weird.
shoulder.
It
walking
was
around.
weird, dude. I don't know how to do crowds anymore. Like, where do you look? What do you do with your hands? Like, need to get that social skill back.
Yeah.
Right,
Well, it was like,
right.
I saw like Ben Green as well. He did that post. I think he went to the Origin and it was like highly suggested you
yeah.
take your face masks, and he counted like 4 face masks in the whole stadium, and the stadium was like pretty packed.
Oh
So-
no, that's a total lie because everybody knows
Why?
that nobody attends State of Origin at ANZ Stadium.
There's probably only 9 people there.
Yeah,
It's the only one I've gone to.
I think I got dragged to it once as well. It was kind of fun.
I was right up the top and yelling really loud, and I had no voice after the game. It was really fun. Also drank a lot of beer.
Oh yeah, I thought you'd definitely get
$13
into
for
a
a
few
mid
beers.
strength.
Yes.
$13
So
for a pot of.
I think I sculled a 6-pack before we like went in too. That was fun. Great decisions, great life decisions. Rugby league fan.
All I
When
know
was that?
is
Oof.
all I know is you can't get too many beers if you are currently on a Valorant caster's hourly rate.
No, not a lot of beers. You might have like one night out and then be broke.
Well,
Well,
seems that way. Now, was that the
I'm
final?
quite fortunate. I don't have all my eggs in the one basket, so maybe leave me out of all this.
You're the biggest threat, Ian.
I am.
You just feel bad charging.
I do. Give my money to someone else.
Oh,
Wow.
you said it. Set in stone.
But they don't do
Well-
that, do they? They just keep it.
do you want to call it there?
I think
feel
that
like we're just-
is time to call it. But look, as we said, there was a lot to cover. There's a lot of things that we've missed. There's a lot of things that we left out of this podcast, omitted from the run sheet as well, because we knew that this one would run significantly longer. We haven't actually got together ourselves to have a yarn for quite some time, let alone actually do a podcast. We've had bits and pieces then and there, but gentlemen, it has been fun. Any final words from yourself, Ian?
No, all good.
All good? And Mac?
Titties, beer, and esports. Great combination.
3 things I've had nothing to do with for the last 6 months.
There you go.
And my final thoughts. Look, gents, I'm going to spring this on you, but we're looking to keep a fortnightly schedule with this. So obviously our weekly schedule was pretty heckers. We know that we've got a lot on our plates, and we're going to try and keep this to a fortnightly schedule. We think that there's obviously enough news to cover within the fortnight, but also making sure that with all the things that we've got going on, we can find some time within a 2-week span to do so. So make sure you tune into our socials. Obviously, all the YouTube, hoorah, follow, like, subscribe, all that jazz. But gents, it's been fun. We've been the Esports Social Club, and we will catch you for another episode of Not Another Podcast very soon.